Do you know what this small cloth strip is for? Before I could ask what it was, the girl blushed crimson, snatched the strip, and bolted out of the bathroom with lightning speed. I thought it was a foot-binding cloth, but if her feet were bound, how could she move so nimbly? Then it hit me. No wonder she bought a bunch of lingerie the other day. She didn't even try. It wasn't malnutrition, it was bound. Su Qing looked at the girl sulking on the ground, intending to offer a few words of comfort, but she nearly drew her sword and sent him on his way. She angrily called him a scoundrel. This day, like any other, Su Qing ran home in the pouring rain, but I was stopped in the hallway by a girl. I was startled. The keys in my pocket fell out. They landed on the ground with a ding. The girl seemed startled by the sound as well. She retreated to the corner. I then saw her clearly. The girl was dressed in ancient clothing, still carrying a long sword. So it's a cosplayer. Su Qing complained to himself, but looking at her posture, her eyes, and those straw sandals, she's too dedicated. Su Qing ignored her, and turned to his own door, opening it and walking straight in. Shortly after, Su Qing finished washing up, and fed his orange cat, Donghua. He opened a bottle of cola and took a big gulp. The thunderstorm outside continued to rage. Perhaps feeling a pang of sympathy, he grabbed an umbrella and opened the door, but he saw the girl standing there, looking extremely guarded. He pointed at the umbrella, about to explain, but the girl suddenly asked, "Where is this?" Su Qing was slightly taken aback. "This is Jiahe residential area on Beiwang Road." The girl seemed a little confused. After a moment of contemplation, she asked, "And who are you?" Su Qing felt utterly bewildered, but he still handed her the umbrella and said, "Just think of me as Lei Feng." Seeing her unmoved, Su Qing asked about the umbrella again. "Do you still want it? If not, I'll take it back." The girl pursed her lips, seemingly lost in thought. The next second, she suddenly cupped her hands together and said, "I am a disciple of the Yen gang. I don't know how I got here." Su Qing was completely speechless. This girl was definitely crazy. He didn't expect her to be a chinibyo. Su Qing sighed. Suppressing my inner complaints, I turned and walked into the house. While taking out my phone, I said, "I'd better call security and see what they can do. Come inside. It's too cold outside." The girl followed him inside, but her attention was drawn to the television. Su Qing, who was making a phone call, was suddenly startled by a loud bang. Turning around, I discovered that the girl had suddenly stabbed the TV with a blade. Her pupils were dilated, and she was gasping, seemingly terrified. Su Qing was stunned. After nervously hanging up the phone, he seemed to sense something was wrong. He scratched his head and asked, "Where did you say you were from?" The girl asked back, somewhat fearfully, "Just now, those people, how did they get out? And, who are you talking to?" Su Qing was momentarily speechless, unsure how to answer. "Is this woman a hardened criminal?" He raised his hands. Why don't you put your sword away first? I'm a good guy. I just gave you an umbrella." The girl looked down and said nothing, seemingly believing him. After a moment of contemplation, she drew her sword. Seeing this, Su Qing continued to ask, "What's your name? Where are you from?" The girl sheathed her sword. "My name is Jiang He. I'm a disciple of the Salt Gang. I want to go home, back to the Salt Gang." "What Salt Gang?" Su Qing had never even heard of it. "This is Beiwang Road, Yongkang New District, Jiangqing City." "Do you know Jiangqing City?" The girl shook her head. Su Qing was momentarily speechless. "You can't actually be from ancient times, can you? Do I really need to ask who the emperor is?" Hearing emperor, the girl instantly gasped. "You mean His Majesty? Then who is the current emperor?" "His Majesty is His Majesty." Seeing the girl wasn't getting it, Su Qing tried a different question. "What year is it now?" The girl looked at him innocently. "Isn't it the 16th year of the Kaiyuan era?" Su Qing tapped away at her keyboard, and after some searching, she found out that the 16th year of the Kaiyuan era was during the reign of Emperor Xuanzong of Tang, right? But the girl had never even heard of Emperor Xuanzong or Li Longji. Su Qing thought for a moment. Then Li Bai, Li Tai Bai, the reclusive scholar of Qingmian Mountain, "Do you know him?" The girl's eyes lit up. "You know him? Where is he? Where do I even begin?" "She's probably farming monsters in the canyon. This girl carries a sword with her, but she's never seen cola before. She even thinks anything that fizzes is poison. A normal doorbell makes her go on high alert and draw her sword." Su Qing, who took her in, has to quickly explain that they're not bad guys. He came to deliver food to himself. Su Qing showed her the takeout. He asked her if she wanted to eat together. The girl acted shyly and softly refused. But as Su Qing was about to take a bite of his burger, the girl suddenly moved closer. Su Qing was speechless. He awkwardly lowered his head, but he still picked up a chicken wrap and handed it to her. "Do you want to try some?" Looking at the fragrant and delicious food in front of her, the girl swallowed her saliva, but she finally shook her head firmly. How about a drink of this to quench your thirst? It's sweet. I bet you've never had it before. Hearing Su Qing's words, the girl took a step back and seemed ready to draw her sword. Are you looking down on me? Su Qing quickly explained that he didn't mean that, but accidentally knocked over the cola on the table. Seeing the black, bubbling liquid flowing out of the bottle, the atmosphere instantly became a little awkward. Su Qing, sweating, was about to explain, when the girl suddenly drew her sword and pointed it at his head. Helpless, Su Qing got up and picked up the cola, and started chugging it down. Seeing this, the girl couldn't say anything more. Su Qing sat down and consoled her. Can you please not pull your sword out at every turn? I'm really a good person. Otherwise, I could have just locked you out, right? Indeed, facing this Tang Dynasty girl, Su Qing had several choices. One was to leave her outside. She'll probably be caught within 3 days. The second is to let the police handle it. But if the girl suddenly feels provoked, it could turn into a massacre. The third option is to keep her here. Even though she's a bit temperamental and quick to draw her sword, she's from ancient times. Maybe she even knows kung fu. If I could get her to teach me, I'd take off directly. Thinking of this, Su Qing picked up the chicken wrap again and offered it to her. Although the girl was very hungry, and the chicken wrap looked delicious, she stubbornly turned her head away, refusing to eat this charity. Seeing this, Su Qing took a bite himself and said, I'll order you a rice bowl with toppings. Then, Su Qing gestured for the girl to sit down. She was scared, holding the sword the whole time. The girl sat down cautiously. Su Qing really wanted to take a picture of her. After a moment of contemplation, Su Qing told her, you may never be able to go back, because this place is very far from your home. A full 1200 years away, because this is 1200 years after your time. Those people like Li Longji, Li Bai, and Yang Guifei lived over 1,000 years ago. They're all long dead. Hearing this, the girl suddenly stood up, and shouted almost desperately, nonsense. Su Qing comforted her, you're a smart person. I think you should have your own judgment. Haven't you seen the outside world already? The girl gritted her teeth, you're spreading fallacies. I don't believe you, she said, walking towards the door. Su Qing hurriedly told her to wait, but the girl directly drew her sword, glaring fiercely at him. Su Qing explained, somewhat dejectedly, this world has its own laws. It's dangerous for you to go out there like this. The girl continued to hold her sword. Her tone softened. Why are you helping me? I took Donghua in when he was outside too. Seeing him pick up the fat cat, the girl slowly withdrew her sword, although she didn't know if the man was lying. But from the first glance, I didn't sense any malice from this person, and she doesn't seem to know anything about this place. If she leaves, I really don't know where she could go. Seeing the girl remain silent, Su Qing picked up his phone. If you want to stay, put down the sword. I'll order you some takeout. And to be honest, taking you in is risky for me. Not only do I have to prevent others from finding you, but I also have to worry about you cutting me down. So, do you understand? After listening, the girl stared at her own sword, and remained silent for several minutes. Finally, she threw the sword on the ground. Then, Su Qing led the girl to the bathroom. I'm going to give her a shower. Her clothes got wet in the rain. He operated the shower, and showed her how to use it. When she tried it, he immediately took out his phone and filmed her. Then, Su Qing waited alone in the living room. But the bathroom remained silent. He had to choose some clothes from his own wardrobe. It would be convenient for her to change later. But when he arrived at the bathroom door, he found it wasn't locked at all. The girl was curiously fiddling with the faucet. He spread out the clothes and said, I don't have any women's clothes here, so you'll have to make do with these. I'll buy you new ones tomorrow. Then he called the girl over, getting ready to teach her how to lock the door. After the girl finally managed to lock it, Su Qing collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. Luckily, I hadn't taken my clothes off yet. Otherwise, I would have surely died on the spot. After a long while, Su Qing almost fell asleep on the sofa waiting. But the girl was playing with bubbles in the bathroom. Her wide eyes were full of curiosity about the unknown. But Su Qing suddenly sat up. He pinched his face hard. It seemed this wasn't a dream. He had picked up an ancient female knight-errant. He picked up the sword the girl had thrown on the ground. This thing was the real deal. He'd have to find someone to appraise it sometime and see if it was an antique. After a while, the girl finally finished her bath. Coming out, I saw Su Qing writing something. She curiously leaned closer. Su Qing froze. Could she be braless? Su Qing lowered his head and handed her the paper. These are the problems that need to be solved at the moment. Do you recognize these characters? The girl took it and looked at it carefully. Then she muttered, it's a little strange. Su Qing, finding it hard to recognize the person, took back the slip of paper. I'll tell you after I finish writing it down. The girl nodded. Then she suddenly said, these clothes are strange too. Su Qing didn't reply, but he suddenly noticed the straw sandals on her feet. So I told her to go to the shoe rack and change her slippers. Watching her clatter over, I couldn't help but sigh. So cute. Just then, the doorbell suddenly rang, startling the girl. I hurried forward to comfort her. It's just the food delivery, don't be nervous. But in my mind, I was thinking, she looks like a homeless kitten. A moment later, the girl looked at the food in front of her and suddenly said, I remember what second in command always said, excessive kindness without cause hides ulterior motives. But the next second, the girl suddenly smiled, but I think you're a good person. Now you're in a time 1,200 years later, whether you accept it or not. Our conversation is based on this premise. Do you understand? The girl nodded silently and obediently. First, this room is absolutely safe. Even if you cut me down with your sword, you'll only be able to hide here for a week, so you don't need to keep thinking about your sword. Su Qing patted the TV again. Even though you don't recognize anything here, like this, it's just a tool that makes sounds. He took out his phone. There are many things like this for entertainment. I'm telling you this to let you know that it's absolutely safe here. Even if you don't understand some of the things I do, that's normal. I won't hurt you, understand? The girl clenched her fists tightly, but after a moment of hesitation, she obediently nodded. Su Qing breathed a sigh of relief, but then looked out the window with a grave expression. The outside world is quite safe, but for me, for you, it's full of danger. Hearing this, the girl finally couldn't help but ask why. Su Qing could only give examples. Because you appeared out of nowhere. It's like in the Imperial Palace. If you strolled around inside with a knife, you'd definitely be arrested. Also, everyone here has identification from birth. Anyone without it will be taken away for scent blending if they encounter burning incense. And if you go out with a sword, you'll break the law. It's a capital offense. The girl immediately understood. I get it. I'm a vagrant. Su Qing shook his head. To be precise, you're more like a slave without a contract. It'll be very bad if you're caught. The girl's expression immediately turned serious. In short, in this world, you're in a dangerous situation. I'm willing to help you, familiarize you with this world, help you slowly integrate here. Mimi slowly lowered her head, but, how can I trust you? I just want to go home. Su Qing spoke frankly, if you don't trust me, we can part ways now. After all, helping you isn't easy. I need your cooperation. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. Hearing this, the girl was silent for a long time. Only the ticking of the clock could be heard in the room. Finally, the girl raised her head and softly asked, then, what should I do? Su Qing's interest was immediately piqued. First, you can't just draw your sword at every turn. If you have any questions, you can also ask. Hearing this, the young woman craned her neck, looking left and right. Then she asked, where's your wife? Su Qing was stunned. Could gossiping be the nature of all women? Seeing him speechless, the young woman lowered her head and continued, will my being here be inconvenient? Seeing this, Su Qing could only tell the truth, I'm unworthy. Having lived for more than 10 years, I'm still single. I'm not married yet. The young woman seemed shocked by this news. Her eyes widened as she repeated, you're not married? Su Qing was speechless, and the air grew awkward. After a moment, he suddenly said, don't tell me you're feeling a little uncomfortable. Being alone with a man in the same room? Where I come from, it's normal, and I happen to have a spare room. Su Qing flung the door open. It was a bit messy, but it would do after a quick tidy. He immediately started tidying up by himself. Seeing this, the girl was puzzled. The customs here were strange. This old wealthy landowner was still unmarried at his age, and someone would bring food over after a simple greeting. But I still had to tidy up the house myself. A little while later, the girl sat alone on the bed, lost in thought. Su Qing also lay in bed, staring blankly out the window. He didn't know how long it was before he finally fell asleep. The next day, Su Qing surprisingly slept until 10 a.m. When he got up, he found the girl sitting on the sofa, staring intently at his sword. He went over and asked, are you hungry? The girl rubbed her belly and murmured, I'm a little. But suddenly, her expression changed, and she patted herself down. The next second, she dashed into the room, and quickly ran back out. She then placed 2 pieces of broken silver in Su Qing's hand. Su Qing instinctively asked, do you have any gold? The girl shook her head. One took a jade pendant out from his clothes. Only then did Su Qing refuse, saying, I was just saying that. I wouldn't let you go hungry. He looked at the girl in front of him again. I'll buy you some toiletries later. And bring back some food, Kuju. Remember, don't go out, okay? Su Qing quickly brushed his teeth and washed his face. I arrived at the women's clothing store in the mall. I casually picked out a few clothes. I even bought a little off-the-shoulder dress. A moment later, I was standing in front of a lingerie store. Looking at my own look of going to my death, I can't let her go out without anything on, can I? I just have to go for it. The girl is this old but has never worn a bra. She curiously asked the man, Joyue, you said. The boy blushed, and threw her a pack of ABCs, telling her to figure it out herself. It turns out the girl had time traveled from the Tang dynasty, Joyue said. Su Qing had taken her in. Early that morning, Su Qing went out to buy daily necessities and clothes for her, carrying several large bags of girly things. Even he felt his scalp tingle with embarrassment. Finally, he made another trip to the bookstore, and bought a copy of A Comprehensive History of China and a book on simplified and traditional Chinese characters. Just as he arrived back at the entrance of his apartment complex, Uncle Zhao, the security guard, reminded him that there seemed to be a thief in the complex recently, and to remember to lock his doors and windows. Su Qing could only nod guiltily, but when he got home, Su Qing saw the girl holding a sword, looking nervous. He handed her the food he'd bought. Didn't I tell you? It's safe here. Eat first. The girl sat on the sofa, looking a little awkward. After a pause, she softly said, thank you. Hearing this, Su Qing was clearly taken aback. In his imagination, shouldn't you be saying, thank you, young hero? He leaned in expectantly. Do I count as a young hero? Or maybe a valiant warrior or something? The little girl tilted her head and thought for a moment, then said hesitantly. Su Qing immediately put on a serious expression and cupped his hands in the ancient style. A trifling matter, not worth mentioning. The girl looked at him with disgust. She didn't know at this moment. I have this inexplicable urge to complain. She could only turn her emotions into appetite. She picked up her lunchbox and started devouring the food. Su Qing watched her. This was completely different from the elegant female knight he had imagined. She wasn't anything like that at all. A moment later, after they finished eating, Su Qing handed her the clothes he had bought. The girl took out a bra and asked him what it was. Su Qing was dumbfounded. He could only let her figure it out herself. If that didn't work, he would find some videos for her to learn from. Then he handed her the books he had bought. But Su Qing also knew that teaching her how to use a computer would be best. A simple search would bring up an encyclopedia. After finishing this, Su Qing asked, after last night, do you have any questions? The girl thought for a moment. What is your identity in this world? Su Qing knew. He was just an unemployed recent graduate. In words she could understand. He was someone who had just failed the imperial examination. I'm going to find a job to make a living. The girl still thought I was a rich kid from a landlord's family. She didn't ask any more questions. Instead, she started looking through the book in her hands, looking at the familiar faces and costumes in the book. Her eyes gradually filled with tears. She muttered to herself, wondering how she could go back. Just yesterday, she was only chasing a petty thief. Then I got lost in the woods, kept turning left and right, and then I saw such a tall building. Su Qing knew there weren't any woods around here. He could only comfort the girl to focus on surviving for now, and then think about going back. Seeing the girl nod, Su Qing suddenly asked, what's your combat strength like? Do you know any internal martial arts or sword techniques? Something like Qinggong? Or how high can you jump from without getting hurt? The girl thought for a moment and pointed out the window. I could probably jump from there without a problem. Su Qing followed her finger. It was as high as the 4th floor. Su Qing's interest grew even stronger. So, can you do the 18 dragon subduing palms, the longevity scripture, or the demonic divine skill? The girl stared with wide, confused eyes. Su Qing continued to ask, how do you practice your kung fu? Do you think I can learn it? The girl was stunned for a moment, but still answered honestly, but you're too old. It will be difficult to achieve anything. But Su Qing didn't care. I don't need achievements. As long as I can learn, can I be your student? The girl didn't hesitate and immediately took a stance. Watch carefully. To practice martial arts, first train your waist. To train your waist, first practice standing. Power comes from the ground. Su Qing immediately lost interest. Can I skip the standing practice? No. How can I practice martial arts without stance training? So how long do I have to practice this stance? 3 years. Su Qing was instantly dumbfounded. 3 years. If I could persevere like that, I would have joined the army. After thinking for a bit, he asked the girl, what about sword training? Can I learn swordsmanship directly? No, my hands can't keep up with my eyes, and my eyes can't keep up with my hands. Su Qing completely wilted and stopped mentioning martial arts practice. He told the girl to try on the clothes first, but as the girl entered the room and closed the door, Su Qing immediately went for the girl's long sword. He drew the sword and made a few swipes in the air, but after only a couple of moves, he froze. This sword is too heavy. A moment later, the girl came out after changing her clothes. He then asked her to take off her hairband. The girl obediently did as she was told. She looked just like the girl next door. Su Qing nodded with satisfaction. With her current appearance, as long as she didn't speak or act rashly, there were basically no flaws. Su Qing decided to take her out for a stroll that evening. Evening came, and the sun began to set. The girl suddenly came to Su Qing's room, and curiously asked him what he was doing. Su Qing told her he was working, making money. After a pause, Su Qing suddenly asked, "By the way, how strong is your leader's martial arts?" The girl was taken aback, but blurted out, "Very strong." Hearing this, Su Qing immediately opened the video on his computer. Watching the exciting fight scenes in the video, the girl's eyes lit up, seemingly full of yearning. But clearly, Su Qing yearned for it even more. He looked at the girl expectantly. "Is your leader this strong?" The girl's expression turned serious. "This kung fu, I'm afraid they're almost immortals. If I were to face these people in the video, I definitely wouldn't even have anywhere to run." But Su Qing opened another video. In the video, a man descended from the sky, performing the legendary Tathagata palm. Watching the person in the video get slammed into the ground with one palm, the girl was completely stunned, even a little scared. She asked, trembling all over, "Is this your power?" Seeing her strange expression, Su Qing quickly explained, "These are all imagined. They are simulated and filmed using tools. Movies are fake. Once you're familiar with this world, you'll understand what cinematic art is." Su Qing thought for a moment. "Cha, put on a more realistic movie. Can you do this? Like this, making afterimages with your bare hands, and with whooshing sounds." The girl stood up directly, and performed a set of martial arts moves empty-handed. Su Qing watched from the side, excited, nodding repeatedly. After finishing, the girl walked out of the room and said, "Tell me when you want to learn. I can teach you how to do the standing meditation." After returning to her room and closing the door, the girl let out a long sigh. As expected, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Now she understood. Su Qing wanted to learn kung fu, but then again, this world is so dangerous. Before she left, Su Qing told her, "Joyue said, just use your eyes and ears. Don't speak unless I tell you to, and don't suddenly fly off. Stay close to me, understand?" The girl nodded obediently. Su Qing took the opportunity to pull out his phone, and snapped a picture of her innocent look. Seeing her finish dressing, and pick up her sword, Su Qing could only offer her comforting words. "It's safe outside, leave your sword at home." He reached for it, but the girl hugged it tightly, refusing to let go. Su Qing had a bit of a headache. "The streets are full of weaklings like me. You could send me flying with one punch." The girl clenched her fists and thought for a moment. Finally, she agreed. A moment later, the girl followed Su Qing out of the building. She looked around cautiously. Su Qing then explained that this place was called a residential complex. It had many families living in it. Over there was the main gate. Outside the gate was the road, and along both sides of the road were shops. As he spoke, a delivery driver sped past, horn blaring. The girl looked at him in surprise. Su Qing quickly calmed her down. They continued walking forward. Su Qing felt a surge of joy. Taking an ancient person shopping, who else could do it? Soon, they reached the main entrance. An older woman looked at the girl. She was clearly stunned, and Su Qing quickly stepped between them. Uncle Zhao, the security guard, also asked, "Xiao Su, is this your girlfriend?" Su Qing could only smile awkwardly, but the old lady remembered that this was the person holding a knife on the stairs yesterday. Uncle Zhao suddenly became tense. "What knife?" Thinking fast, Su Qing said, "It was cosplay. It's something young people like to do." After saying that, Su Qing grabbed the girl's hand. I walked a few steps toward the door before turning back and saying, "We'll be going now." Once they were out of sight, the girl pulled her hand away from his. She continued to follow behind Su Qing. At the same time, a car sped past on the road. The girl was stunned. "That thing moves so fast." Su Qing explained, "That's called a car. It serves the same purpose as a horse-drawn carriage, but it doesn't require horses to pull it. You can think of it as putting birds inside a carriage. They run inside the carriage." The girl tried to understand what he was saying, but the more she thought, the more confused she became. At this moment, the two arrived under a surveillance camera. Su Qing pointed at the camera. "Look at that. That's clairvoyance. All the movies we watch are filmed with these. They're everywhere. Even though we're just standing here, someone thousands of miles away could be watching us." This freaked the girl out. She turned and walked away. Su Qing was about to explain when he noticed the girl picking up stones in a planter. Then she picked one up, eyes fixed on the monitor. Su Qing quickly stepped forward to stop her. "You're not going to try and knock it down, are you?" The girl looked at him silently, her eyes as if saying, "What else?" Su Qing sighed helplessly, and made her put the stone back. Shortly after, they arrived at an intersection. Su Qing started explaining again, this is called a traffic light. When the red light is on, it means you can't go. You can only cross when the green light is on. The girl followed behind Su Qing, crossing the crosswalk. She looked up at the streetlights overhead. Then she turned her head, looking at the shops and a flow of people beside her. While she was facing off with the little dog, Su Qing suddenly took out a hair tie and asked her about it. How about this one? Without waiting for her reply, Su Qing imagined her wearing it, and felt it wasn't quite right, so he continued to look at the stall in front of him, troubled. The girl leaned forward, and looked at all the sparkling trinkets. She was immediately captivated. She felt she had never seen anything so beautiful. A moment later, Su Qing picked out a hair tie with a butterfly on it and handed it to her. The girl took the hair tie, and put it on her head. Su Qing, walking in front, kept turning back to look at her. He felt it was indeed very suitable. As the sun set in the west, Su Qing brought the girl to a restaurant. Boss, 2 orders of fried flat noodles and a cucumber salad. A moment later, the girl sitting at the table, was staring absent-mindedly out the window. Su Qing, however, was watching her. Neither of them knew what the other was thinking. Soon, the boss placed the food in front of them. The girl seemed a little at a loss. Su Qing handed her the chopsticks and soothed her, urging her to eat. He then picked up a glass of lemonade and took a sip. Looking at this silly girl, it seemed that keeping this heroine around would make things far more complicated than he had imagined. He could only take things one step at a time. Soon, after they finished eating, Su Qing took the girl home. The girl sat upright on the sofa, nervously fidgeting with her fingers. Everything outside was unfamiliar, making her just want to go home quickly. Su Qing sat beside her. It's a pity you can't go back. 1200 years, the girl seemed a little uneasy. So, what about my identity and everything? How do I resolve that? Su Qing hugged Donghua. You have to integrate into this society first. It will all work out eventually. Don't worry, I'll help you. Hearing this, the woman politely cupped her hands and said, thank you, young hero. Su Qing responded with equal enthusiasm, it was nothing. Su Qing, in high spirits, began to boast again. Identity is very important in this world. Without an identity, it's hard to get anywhere. By the way, where's the note I gave you yesterday? The girl pointed at the trash can and answered honestly. You crumpled it up, and threw it in the trash. The girl picked up the note, and asked while looking at it, what happens if I don't have an identity? Then you're undocumented. You can't do anything. You can't work, you can't stay in an inn, and you can't take any transportation. Even if there's a dispute, the authorities won't help you. They'll arrest you. The girl quickly understood. In short, it's very important. Su Qing took out his computer and started searching. If you had come 20 years earlier, things would be different. Or you could try seeking help from the authorities of this world, although you'll likely lose your freedom. No, it's just a hypothetical scenario. You go study first. After you learn more about modern times, you can decide for yourself. The good girl felt a bit wronged, but she could only lower her head and agree. I've been worried about how to solve her identity issue. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a solution online. After flipping through my contacts, Su Qing suddenly remembered his best friend, Qin Hao. Now a glorious patrol officer, Su Qing originally wanted to ask directly what he could do, but he didn't know where to start. After all, no one would believe this. So Su Qing decided to wait until the weekend to go out and ask him when they got together. Then, Su Qing took a nice, comfortable hot shower. After finishing, he started feeding Winter Melon cat food without getting dressed, until he accidentally touched his own smooth chest muscles. Su Qing remembered there was someone of the opposite sex at home, and an extremely disabled person of the opposite sex at that. Annoyed, he ran into his own room. Hearing no more movement from the living room, the girl stealthily came out with her clothes. Then, with lightning speed, she ran directly into the bathroom. After all, taking a shower is so comfortable, who could refuse? Soon, Saturday arrived. Su Qing gave the girl a drawing tablet, and was about to show her how to use it, when Donghua suddenly barked behind them, interrupting their intimate moment. Su Qing had to get up to feed Donghua. Watching Su Qing pour the cat food into the bowl, the girl couldn't help but ask, what is that? This is cat food. It's food specifically for cats. The girl was dumbfounded. You even have food for cats? What kind of seeds do you plan to grow that? Just then, the doorbell rang. Su Qing handed the takeout to the girl. This is your dinner. I'm going out to meet a friend tonight. The girl ignored him, and opened the packaging, taking a large bite out of the burger. Donghua came closer, looking at the girl appealingly. Su Qing picked Donghua up. Go eat your cat food. The girl looked confused. Can't I give it some? Of course not, it's unhealthy. Hearing this, the girl was thunderstruck. This burger suddenly doesn't taste so good anymore. Not long after, in front of a barbecue stall, this person is Su Qing's best friend, Qin Hao. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Su Qing suddenly asked, suppose there's a homeless person, who has lost their memory and wants to get an ID card to work, but they don't have any identification. How can they get an ID card? Qin Hao picked his teeth. There's no way. You think I'm just buying groceries? What? Is there someone you need to arrange this for? Su Qing gave a dry laugh. My great-granduncle's second aunt's neighbor's nephew asked me to inquire. In the end, after Qin Hao explained, Su Qing finally understood that this simply couldn't be done. They both had quite a bit to drink. Su Qing called a car and sent Qin Hao home. He also packed up some food to bring back for his girlfriend. Back at home, Su Qing saw his girlfriend and Donghua sound asleep. This sight gave him an inexplicable pang in his heart. But in the next second, his girlfriend opened her eyes wide and stared at him. Su Qing plopped down beside her. He took 2 bottles of yogurt out of the bag. Before you drink this, you have to lick it like this. Watching the girl lick the cream topping with a satisfied look on her face, Su Qing smiled contentedly. This feeling of coming home to lights on, and someone in the house, it's really nice. Su Qing went and took a shower. I suddenly remembered I haven't taught her how to do laundry. After asking her, she suddenly remembered that strange piece of cloth from yesterday, and blushed furiously. She shook her head vigorously, trying to forget about it. The next morning, Su Qing asked her if she wanted to go buy breakfast together, but she refused. Unsuspecting, Su Qing, Zibao hummed a tune as he went downstairs, but was called over by Uncle Zhao, the security guard by the roadside. Several elderly men and women were also present. Su Qing was a little puzzled. Are you discussing state affairs? He asked. One of the aunties looked at him suspiciously and leaned closer. Have you heard anything? While you were sleeping at night recently? Su Qing scratched his head. What's that sound? First uncle's face was pale. Our place might be haunted. A few nights ago, something scared him witless. Security guard Zhao also said in a deep voice, the surveillance cameras caught it. Come to the monitoring room. Through the surveillance footage, you can clearly see a dark shadow, leaping and weaving between buildings. Su Qing felt a headache coming on. With those skills, it must be her. Su Qing hurried home and immediately questioned his younger sister. Did you sneak out in the middle of the night? His sister stammered. How did you know? Su Qing was on the verge of tears. How did I know? They caught you on camera. He paused. Su Qing asked again, what were you wearing at the time? The girl lowered her head. Black. I also covered my face. Hearing this, Su Qing finally breathed a sigh of relief. As long as your face wasn't shown, no one should be able to find you. He instructed the girl again. If you want to go out in the future, tell me. Don't run off on your own. Okay, I'm still a bit shaken. Did I mess things up? You know you did. Now the whole complex is talking about ghosts. Forget it. What do you want to eat? I'll order takeout. The girl, who was worried just moments ago, was suddenly touched. I want to eat healthy. You can eat cat food. Do you know what this small cloth strip was used for in the Tang dynasty? Just now, Su Qing threw his clothes into the washing machine. The young woman curiously came over and asked, will this really get them clean? After hearing Su Qing's affirmative reply, the young woman dashed back to her room, and returned with an armful of dirty clothes. Su Qing watched as she threw them into the washing machine. Suddenly, she pulled out a long, thin strip of cloth. Before I could ask what it was, the girl, blushing furiously, snatched the cloth, and dashed out of the bathroom with lightning speed. I thought it was a foot-binding cloth, but if her feet were bound, how could she move so nimbly? Then it hit me. No wonder she bought a pile of lingerie the other day. She didn't even try. It wasn't malnutrition, it was wrapped up. Su Qing looked at the girl sulking on the ground, and was about to offer a few words of comfort, when she nearly drew her sword to send him on his way. She angrily called him a dengtuzi, lecher/pervert. But Su Qing, instead of feeling ashamed, took it as a compliment, cupping his hands together and saying, thank you for your praise, young lady. But all joking aside, you can't return the clothes you bought. White cloth strips are useful, but modern products are more comfortable, aren't they? Su Qing opened his computer, and played an instructional video for her. 5 minutes later, Su Qing returned and asked, how is it going? But the girl trembled all over. You people here, live so, wantonly, Su Qing explained seriously. That's old-fashioned thinking. Nowadays, whether women expose their waists or shoulders, it's personal freedom. Men can go shirtless, why can't women? If you don't accept it, you can wear long pants and long sleeves yourself, but I can't call others shameless. However, his sister still couldn't accept his foot fetish. Su Qing had to compromise and change the subject. He opened Super Mario on his computer. The girl was instantly captivated. Under Su Qing's guidance, the girl quickly got the hang of it. Seeing her so engrossed, Su Qing couldn't help but feel gratified. That way, she won't be thinking about running away all day. An hour later, Su Qing interrupted her. He changed the game for her to Go Diju, landlords. It didn't take long for her to learn how to play. Then Su Qing went to sleep by himself. Until sunset, Su Qing woke up yawning. She was still engrossed in the game. Su Qing leaned in and said, "It's about time. I'll take you out to eat on the east side today. Go change your dress, and your hairstyle too. Don't let anyone connect you to that shadowy figure from the other day." The girl looked down at her own outfit. Finally, she agreed. A moment later, the girl, now in a different dress, felt uncomfortable all over. Blushing, she asked Su Qing, "Is this okay?" Su Qing was stunned for a moment. He even forgot to curse inwardly. A moment later, he came back to his senses, cleared his throat, and said, "Let's change back to the previous outfit. This one is too eye-catching." The young woman felt like she had been tricked. Pouting, she clenched her fists. Shortly after, the two went downstairs and ran into Uncle Zhao, the security guard. "Oh, taking your girlfriend shopping again?" Su Qing scratched his head awkwardly. "Just a friend." "But Uncle Zhao, is that stick made of peach wood?" Uncle Zhao swung it a couple of times. "No, the peach wood one hasn't arrived yet. I'm just making do with some talismans for now." "Do I look like Qin Xiong from the New Year pictures?" Su Qing could only force a smile and give him a thumbs up. "You do. Just like." Then, the two of them left the complex. Walking on the sidewalk, the girl suddenly looked around. Then she came closer and whispered, "What's a girlfriend?" "It's a friend." "Then why add the word girl?" "Because you're a girl." "Then why do you say you're not?" Su Qing was completely at a loss. "You wouldn't understand even if I explained it now. You'll know later." Su Qing knew that if she found out what girlfriend meant, she'd probably pack her bags and run away that very night. On the road, this girl from the Tang dynasty looked at the crowds coming and going on the street. There was no curfew here, and no hawkers peddling their wares all over the streets. There weren't any bumpy, muddy roads. Everywhere exuded a unique atmosphere. She had never seen such a peaceful place. Everything she saw felt like a dream. Su Qing didn't have so many feelings. He went to buy a pearl milk tea and a kumquat lemon tea. A moment later, the girl stared blankly, holding her bubble tea. "Those people just now, do they make money doing that? Can I learn to do that kind of work?" Su Qing didn't hide anything. "You can learn," he said, "but you can't earn money from it yet, because you don't have an ID card. Don't worry, try the bubble tea first." The girl obediently lowered her head and started drinking the milk tea, but soon the texture of the boba made her uncomfortable. She forced it down before saying, "It tastes a bit strange, and these boba pearls are hard to chew." Su Qing immediately laughed. "I think so too." The girl gave his drink a strange look. Is there something wrong with this guy's head? He thinks it tastes bad, but he still buys it for someone else. But then, Su Qing offered her kumquat lemon drink. "Do you want to try mine?" The girl swirled her own drink. Then she stuck her straw into his cup and took a sip. The next second, she was captivated. "Wow, this is so good." Seeing this, Su Qing took her pearl milk tea. "Let's trade then. I already bought it, it's not good to just throw it away." Looking at Su Qing, who was drinking his milk tea, the girl felt like something wasn't quite right, but after thinking about it, she let it go. Because the kumquat lemon tea was really good. Not long after they finished eating, while strolling, Su Qing suddenly saw a bus stop, and took the girl onto the bus. He gave the window seat to the girl. The girl looked out the window, amazed. Shortly after, they got off the bus at the Lanjiang Bridge. "This is the best night view around here," the girl asked Su Qing dazedly. "Is this really 1,000 years later?" Su Qing leaned against the railing. "You've read most of the history books, so you should have an answer in your heart. 1,200 years. The world has changed, you probably can't go back. Although it's difficult to manage your identity, there are always more solutions than difficulties. Staying here wouldn't be bad. Given enough time, you'll find a lifestyle you enjoy. Enjoy this prosperous age." 1,200 years later, as the clock struck 12, brilliant fireworks suddenly rose from the riverside. "This is the best era in thousands of years. There's no reason we can't accommodate one girl, even if she accidentally came from 1,200 years ago." The next morning, Su Qing looked at the news on his phone, speechless. This girl played a flying thief in the middle of the night, and now there are fewer people outside at night. The girl leaned against the window, and suddenly pointed out the window, asking, "What are all those people looking at over there?" Su Qing took a bite of his burger and went to take a look. Wow, the complex actually hired a Taoist priest to catch ghosts. A moment later, the two were eating breakfast. The girl asked, looking thoughtful, Do people here all live like they're in prison? Su Qing was a bit embarrassed. Of course not. This is called being a homebody. Being a homebody is a lifestyle she naturally couldn't understand. Su Qing thought for a moment. I can choose to go out, or I can choose to stay at home, like a wealthy landlord, who lazes around the house all day, playing with dogs and cats. So, she wanted to go out. She wanted to leave this place and see the outside world. Su Qing immediately began to lecture her. Putting other things aside, food, clothing, shelter, transportation. You can go without washing your clothes. You can walk everywhere, but where will you live? Are you going to sleep on someone else's roof? Are you going to steal or rob? There are no deep mountains and old forests around here for you to hunt in. You'll just end up rummaging through trash cans. The girl felt silent. How could she not know this in her heart? Su Qingwen took 2 coins out of his pocket. You've made a lot of progress. At least you can take the bus now. You recognize money. If I give you some money, you can survive out there for a while. You're much better than when you first arrived. Take your time. Once the haunting thing blows over, I'll take you out more. Just then, a knock suddenly came from the door. Su Qing quickly pushed the girl back into the room. He opened the door hesitantly, and the person standing there was none other than his father. Su Qing asked nervously, "Dad, what are you doing here?" His father adjusted his glasses. "Call me landlord." After entering, his father immediately asked, "Still haven't found a job?" Su Qing stretched. "Landlord, why do you care if I have a job? Isn't it enough that I can pay the rent? Did you come all the way here just to see if I'm working? It's National Day, no one's working. Did you come to check on the utilities? I'll transfer the money to you right now." Father Su turned his head and saw the game on the computer. He felt even angrier. "If you don't find a job by next month, I'm raising your rent." Su Qing suddenly asked, "Oh right, Dad, did you see that Taoist priest when you came in? This place is haunted, it's not safe, and the environment isn't good. You should lower the rent a bit." Just then, Su Qing's father opened a door, and saw women's clothes hanging on the windowsill. His face darkened. "Su Qing, you've even learned to wear these kinds of clothes now." A million thoughts raced through Su Qing's mind. Whether to admit it or not was a dilemma. But compared to her son wearing women's clothing, the fact that there was suddenly an extra girl in the house shouldn't be too strange, right? Besides, she could hide it for a while, but not forever. If his dad just happened to chat with any old lady outside, those gossips must have spread the word about the girl. Thinking of this, Su Qing could only reply, "Actually, she's a friend's. My friend's younger sister is staying here for a few days." After saying that, Su Qing knocked on the girl's door. A moment later, the girl looked at them with a bewildered expression. Only then did Su Qing introduce them. "This is my dad," the girl said cautiously. She was about to call him Dad as well, but suddenly felt something was wrong. Her little head couldn't quite process it. She turned and whispered, "What should I call him?" Call him Uncle." Su's father was completely dumbfounded. "Just now, this girl, seems like she's trying to call me Dad." "Definitely is. This is getting complicated." The girl quickly lowered her head and greeted my uncle. Su Qing scratched his face from the side. "That's probably it. She'll be staying here for a while." Father didn't say anything else, and just pulled Su Qing into a side room. "Tell me, what's going on?" Su Qing crossed her arms. "It's just like that. A friend is staying over. Don't just show up and scare her." Su Qing's father suddenly said, "Is this your girlfriend? She almost called you Dad just now." "You heard wrong. How old is she?" 18. The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. Father Su sighed. "What a sin. I came here to urge my son to pay rent and find a job, and a girl who almost called me Dad pops out, and you say she's not your girlfriend? Do I look like a fool?" Su Qing could only end the conversation. All right, I still have work to do. I'll go home and have dinner with Mom when I have time," he said helplessly. Father Su could only choose to leave. As he was leaving, he turned his head and said, "Remember to be careful." Just as he was about to leave, Su Qing suddenly stopped him. Then, a pair of delicate straw sandals was placed before him. Su Qing looked at him expectantly. "Take a look. How much can these Tang Dynasty antiques sell for?" "My father is an archaeologist, asking him is definitely right." Father Su fiddled with his ear. "Hold on, which dynasty's antique did you say it was from?" "Tang Dynasty, from Li Longji's time." "Take a look, is it valuable?" Father Su's eyes were filled with pity. "I don't know if it's valuable or not, but you'd better go to Nanshan Second Hospital for a mental evaluation. I wonder if it's too late to have a second child." Father Su got up to leave, but Su Qing was still unwilling to give up. "Why don't you take another look? See if you can make it look old or something." Father Su was completely furious. "Make it look old? Make it an antique. Can you do something worthwhile?" Stop messing around with all this nonsense. If you weren't all grown up, I'd find a stick and beat you. In his agitation, Father Su, he grabbed the long sword beside him. The next second, he froze. There seemed to be something special about this sword. Su Qing thought, this is bad. If the old man ran off with this sword, the girl would definitely be furious with him. This was her livelihood. Father Su slowly drew the sword. After staring at the blade for a long time, Su Qing couldn't help but ask, how is it? Veins bulged on Su Qing's father's forehead. Get out of here. He tossed the sword back to Su Qing and turned to leave. Su Qing knew in his heart that the blade didn't have a single trace of oxidation. It definitely couldn't be a 1,000-year-old antique. Is there a shortcut to becoming a master quickly? This was the question Su Qing wanted to ask the most at this moment. He originally thought he'd picked up a girl from the Tang dynasty, and could learn qigong and sword fighting. But he tried practicing the stance, and couldn't last even 5 minutes. But there are no shortcuts in martial arts. Su Qing couldn't help but sigh towards the sky. In today's peaceful society, the cost-effectiveness of learning martial arts is ridiculously low. I'll have to pay if I hurt someone. Su Qing suddenly stood up. Let's play games instead. We'll talk about practicing later. To let this Tang dynasty girl learn about life, we should start with the little things. When children first experience the world, they start with games too. Under Su Qing's guidance, the girl played all afternoon, until dinner time. The girl just asked a question. How do you make money with that thing called a game? Su Qing casually picked up some food with his chopsticks. Once you learn it, you can make money by playing it for others. Games are just like fighting crickets, something to do for fun after you're full. And then there are lots of people, tens or hundreds of thousands of people playing this game together. There are always people who don't have time to play games, so they'll pay someone with free time like you to play for them. The girl was shocked. No time to play games, so they hire people to level up their accounts for them. Yeah, it's kind of like raising a game account for a rich landlord. Once you've leveled it up, they'll take it and play. Do you understand? Anyway, just be an internet-addicted girl. Better than sneaking out in the middle of the night to scare people. Just then, Donghua wobbled over. He rubbed against Su Qing's leg but was rejected. He then wobbled over to the girl. With a jump, he landed on her lap, and comfortably fell asleep. Meanwhile, inside a police station, several police officers were on duty. Someone suddenly asked everyone if they were hungry, suggesting they order takeout. Qin Hao said he wasn't very hungry. Looking out the window, he sighed with boredom. I'm so bored today. I have nothing to do. As soon as he said this, everyone turned to look at him, making Qin Hao feel a little awkward. What? Didn't your mentor teach you never to say such things? Qin Hao was even more confused. What do you mean? What things? Just then, the phone rang at just the right moment. All three of them sighed. A moment later, in a police car, an officer told Qin Hao, never say such things at the station again, even though it's metaphysics. But as long as someone says something, I won't have a moment's rest for the entire day. I'll be run off my feet, soon. The two arrived at a residential building. A man was sitting on the ground holding a bottle of alcohol. Qin Hao thought it was a big case, but the man suddenly said, Why are you so late? I've been waiting forever. Tell my wife to open the door. The accompanying officer could only knock and inquire. We just received a report of a disturbance here. Please open the door and cooperate. A moment later, a haggard woman opened the door, but she said she hadn't called the police. Could it have been a neighbor who thought it was too loud? The drunkard suddenly started cursing. I'm the one who called the police. This woman dared to lock me out. There's no law. Then she explained, he's my husband. He drank too much, so I locked him out in a fit of pique. I'm sorry. I'll teach him a lesson. The drunkard was still ranting. What's wrong with having a few drinks? This isn't over between us. The officer wasn't having any of it, and immediately flashed his handcuffs, warning, how about I take you back to the station to sober up? The drunk immediately sobered up, stammering, no need, I'm sober now. Qin Hao suppressed a laugh. Another big case solved, great. As they were walking down the stairs, their pagers went off again. There's a police incident at so-and-so residential area. Qin Hao finally saw firsthand what metaphysics truly meant. Elsewhere, just a moment ago, Su Qing was startled awake. He seemed to hear a noise in the living room. He thought his sister was sneaking out again to play ghost in the middle of the night. Upon opening the door, he indeed saw a shadowy figure in black. He turned on the light as he said, Hey, my lady knight, what are you up to now? But as the light came on, the person before him was clearly a man. Su Qing belatedly yelled, Holy crap, a thief! Before he could react, a figure darted past him. The girl instantly pinned the thief down. Her 5 fingers squeezed relentlessly, making a crunching sound. Su Qing hurriedly told her to let go. Any tighter and you'll crush him. A moment later, the thief knelt on the ground, trembling. The girl stared at him vigilantly, as if facing a formidable enemy. Only Su Qing felt a headache. Unsure of what to do, she had instantly subdued a grown man. He slammed him to the ground with one hand around his throat. I almost knocked him out cold right there. The thief still has clear handprints on his arm. That's more brutal than Godzilla. Su Qing thought for a moment and then said, just stay there and don't move. I'll call my friend on the police force and have him come over. The thief was terrified. Brother, my good brother. The thief was about to beg for mercy, but he met the childlike gaze of the young woman. He quickly withdrew his hand. Brother, please let me off this once. I won't do it again. Su Qing retorted angrily. You have hands and feet, why not do something honest? Do you think my money grows on trees? What? Judging by your reaction, is this your first time? The thief lowered his head. I swear this is my first time. Sir, please be merciful, don't call the police. I won't dare to do it again. The thief clutched his arm and trembled uncontrollably. You'll need to survive this time to have a next time. I heard this place was haunted, so I came to check it out. I didn't find anything, but I almost died. Look at that woman's aura, and her strength. Is she some kind of martial arts champion? Su Qing pondered for a moment and then said, apologize. The thief quickly bowed and apologized in one breath, I'm sorry. Su Qing then accused him of lacking sincerity, and still wanted to call the police, especially since the thief was injured. Hearing this, the thief grabbed Su Qing's trouser leg. I'm fine, bro. Just let me go. I swear to God. I accidentally got this injury from a fall. It has nothing to do with you two. Seeing this, Su Qing walked directly to the window. Then how did you get in? Just get out the same way. The next second, the thief climbed directly onto the window. He slid down the rope 3 steps at a time. He went straight down and even waved goodbye as he left. Bless you, kind sir. May you live a long and prosperous life. The girl stood behind Su Qing. You just let him go like that. Su Qing closed the window as he explained. What else could I do? Reporting this to the authorities, they might even hold you accountable for hitting him. If the officials investigate and find you, they'll ask questions, and you're undocumented. So, pretending nothing happened is the best option. Hearing this, the girl was very confused. He was trying to steal something. And they'll hold me accountable for hitting him. They're two different things. You can't explain it to them. By the way, why are you still wearing your outside clothes? Are you planning to sneak out in the middle of the night? The girl quickly explained, no, I'm just used to sleeping in this. Su Qing didn't say anything more. Instead, he yawned and told her to go back to sleep. The girl said goodnight, but it was unclear what she was thinking. Do you believe this girl could knock you into next week with one punch? Early in the morning, after Su Qing finished washing up, he saw the young woman walk out of her room covered in sweat. Su Qing couldn't help but ask, have you been practicing in your room all morning? The young woman untied her hair tie. Yes, could you leave the door open, so I can see how you practice? Sure, as a hero, don't be so stingy. Before I finished. Su Qing suddenly froze. You agreed so readily. The girl was a bit speechless. You're so strange. It's bad if I agree, and it's bad if I don't agree. Soon after, they both got ready, and decided to go out for breakfast. To learn how to live, the best way is to experience life. Do you know how to learn? You have to abandon your old way of thinking. Forget where you came from. Treat everything as brand new. The girl looks puzzled. Brand new, like that thief last night. If you encounter a similar situation, you can subdue him. But don't be too rough. Didn't you just snap his neck last night? The girl raises her fists. No, I didn't. I've already held back a lot. Su Qing, looking at her sandbag-like fists, could only softly say, that's good. Hurting people here is very troublesome. Given your strength, you must never kill. The girl tilted her head. Then to what extent can I hit someone? Su Qing thought for a moment. That depends on the situation. Like, the reason why you would hit someone. The girl suddenly became serious. So if you sneak into my room in the middle of the night, how hard should I hit you? Su Qing was immediately stunned. He turned his head angrily and told her. That's absolutely impossible. Give me another if. Do I look like that kind of person? The girl stared at him with wide eyes for a full 5 seconds. He really looks like him. Su Qing immediately struck a heroic pose. I'm a young hero. A noble, righteous young hero who specializes in doing good deeds. Understand? The girl covered her mouth and hesitantly said, I'll believe you for now. What do you mean, for now? Wait, why would you have such a strange thought? Su Qing felt a little awkward. Although I did fish her shoes out of the trash, I really haven't done anything else. The girl panicked a bit. You were the one who said it before. You said you were a scoundrel. Su Qing was speechless. I was obviously kidding. Besides, you've seen it yourself, I'm such a weakling. If I really went, I'd be taken out with one punch. Who would dare go? But then again, if it really happened, what would you do? The girl thought for a moment, then raised her fist and said, then I'll punch you. Su Qingru was struck by lightning. If she throws this punch, she's afraid it could kill her. A little later, the two arrived at a restaurant. Su Qing greeted the owner. The usual, a double portion. The two found a seat and sat down. The young woman looked around curiously. Su Qing told her with a chuckle, from now on, feel and experience life. Remember this day well. Hearing this, she stretched out her hands. Forget the past and start over. An era where I no longer need to wield a sword and kill. At this moment, a waiter came over with breakfast, interrupting her reminiscence. A simple breakfast used to be so unattainable. The girl picked up a steamed bun and took a big bite, savoring it. Su Qing looked at the girl in front of him. Who would have thought? This girl eating a bun was from ancient times. Do all ancient people have big appetites? If you're not full, there's more. The porridge here is all you can eat. You can ask the waiter for more buns too. I'll take care of the bill later. Hearing this, the girl stared blankly at the buns in front of her. Are these buns very expensive? No, not at all. Breakfast is the cheapest meal of the day. Don't worry about the food, eat your fill. So, the girl got up and walked towards the counter. Su Qing thought she really wasn't full. It felt like taking care of a child. It was quite fulfilling. But then the girl's words made Su Qing almost choke. She actually ordered another 15 buns. Su Qing quickly told the owner they were all for takeaway. After the girl came back and sat down, Su Qing quietly asked, can you really finish all that? The girl looked at him sheepishly. Probably, almost. Did I really eat too much? Not really, it's just that it's too conspicuous. Just try to act normal when we're out. We'll get it to go and you can continue eating later. Shortly after, Su Qing walked out of the restaurant carrying a big bag of steamed buns. As they walked down the street, Su Qing suddenly stopped. He looked at an all-you-can-eat hot pot restaurant by the roadside. I'll take you to try a buffet sometime. You can eat all you want in there for just a small fee, until you can't eat anymore. And they have everything. The girl was surprised. There's such a good thing. Is this some kind of relief organization? Su Qing explained, no. It's just a very common restaurant. It's just a business model. Because most of us do mental work. We don't eat a lot. So some business people run these kinds of restaurants. Especially the elderly and children. They pay 100 yuan but only get 30 yuan worth of food. So the restaurant makes a huge profit. The girl took a bite of the bun, and said, some people eating a lot and losing a bit of money is fine, because they make it back from those with small appetites. Su Qing felt pleasantly surprised. Very clever. The first time I went to an all-you-can-eat with my dad as a child, I wondered why the owner was so nice, letting people eat as much as they want. I was laughed at for so long, but I still don't quite understand why people with small appetites go to buffets. Do they have too much money? Well, not really. Buffets have a wider variety of dishes, and you don't have to worry about ordering or the price. The girl suddenly realized, I can eat whatever I want. So that's how it is. Su Qing looked at the naive girl. For this girl, whose mind was a blank slate, every conversation with her was a learning experience, combining all aspects of life. Once she accumulated enough knowledge, it would eventually lead to a qualitative change, allowing her to grasp how the world works. She seems to fit in with this world now. Ever since I found that girl from the Tang dynasty at my door, I feel more and more like an NPC, helping the protagonist integrate into modern society. This afternoon, I dug out a phone for her. She asked hesitantly, is this phone thing very expensive? However, this was just a free phone Su Qing got when he signed up for a supplementary SIM card and topped it up. It happened to be perfect for the girl. The girl took the phone with a surprised look on her face, examined it carefully, and finally thanked Su Qing excitedly. After Su Qing showed her how to make calls, he told her he was going out tonight. He suggested she watch some videos or play Do Di Zhu. It's after work, no need to play games anymore. The girl was still a bit confused. Making these little people run around on the computer, is that really a job? Of course it is. I put your takeout on the table. Remember to eat. Call me if you need anything. After saying this, Su Qing went downstairs alone and hailed a taxi. He was going home to have dinner with his mother. Shortly after, Su Qing opened the door to his home, but the house was empty, with no one inside. Hearing the noise, his father came out of the study. Dad, where's Mom? She's still out playing mahjong. What time is it? Aren't you hungry? Su Qing hung his clothes on the hanger as he spoke. But my father asked. Now that you mention it, I'm actually a little hungry. Call her and tell her to come back. By the way, where's your girlfriend? Su Qing honestly replied, what girlfriend? I told you, she's just a friend. She's just staying at my place for a while. His father clearly didn't believe him. You kids think you can hide things from me. If it were a guy, would you let him stay? Didn't Chin-hao stay here? He doesn't count. If that kid were a girl, she'd be your girlfriend by now. Hearing her father's words, Su Qing imagined Chin-hao as a girl, and felt a wave of nausea, unable to speak. Su Qing took out her phone, preparing to call her mother, but I couldn't help complaining to myself. Honestly, after all these years, Mom's still the same. Once she starts playing mahjong, she forgets everything. After the call, father and son sat on the sofa in silence. After a moment, Su Qing suddenly pulled out a bill. My place was burgled the other day. I had to fix the window. Can you reimburse me? My father clearly didn't believe me. Robbed? What's there to steal from you? I was speechless. Isn't a computer worth money? My father took the bill and looked it over. Don't you sleep cuddling your computer? Who could possibly steal it from you? At this point, my father cleared his throat again. Are you alright, though? Su Qing was a little taken aback. He was momentarily touched by his father's concern. The next second, he gave a thumbs up. The thief had been beaten up, and driven away. Just then, his mother finally returned. She asked Su Qing why he hadn't told them he was coming back. Su Qing was exasperated. I said it in the group chat at noon. You even replied. Mother forced a polite smile. Really? Look at my memory. I was too busy and forgot again. I'll go cook now. You two watch some TV. Father and son watched her back. She's even humming. I bet she won at least 10 yuan today. A moment later, mother, while chopping vegetables, suddenly asked, Right, where's your girlfriend? Su Qing started explaining again, I don't have a girlfriend. Don't listen to my dad's nonsense. His father wasn't happy. What nonsense? Her clothes are hanging up here, she's eating and living here, and even doing laundry together. Can ordinary friends do that? Soon after, his mother brought the dishes to the table, and leaned in with a gossipy look. Come on, do you have any photos I can see? At first, she planned to go over there directly, but later, her father talked her out of it. He said the situation wasn't clear, and it wasn't a good idea to rush over there, so she could only wait until I came back to ask. I took a bite of food, just an ordinary friend. They all have one mouth and two eyes, what's so interesting to see? Having said that, he knew that with his mother's personality, if she didn't get to see it today, this matter wouldn't be dropped. Su Qing took out his phone, and picked a photo to show her. His mother's eyes were immediately drawn in. Oh, he's so handsome. Let me have a good look. This was taken on the Lanjiang Bridge, right? The next second, my mother quickly flipped through several more photos. I quickly grabbed my phone back. Okay, you've seen them all. Give me back my phone. These are my ancient observation records. Whether she's handsome or not, why do you consider her your daughter-in-law? My mother laughed. No matter if she's walking, sitting, or going out, he just casually took a few pictures of her. So even if she's not his girlfriend yet, he's definitely interested in her. This kid is interested in her, and she's staying at his place temporarily. Clearly they're interested in each other. The mother cleared her throat. The girl looks quite young. 18, is it? Where does she go to school? She didn't go to school. Her family was poor. Isn't it perfectly reasonable that she couldn't afford it? His father, sitting beside him, suddenly spoke the truth. If she were highly educated, why would she be interested in him? He just idles around at home all day, glued to his computer. He doesn't even have a job. Come on. I'm not living off you. Save your scorn for when I actually am. Mothers are always more concerned about girls. So how did you two meet? Isn't she local to Jiangqing? Su Qing didn't know how to answer for a moment. Why don't you guys go back to talking about me being a freeloader? After all, our heroine hasn't even figured out how to survive in this world yet, and you're already trying to set her up. That doesn't seem right. Not long after dinner, Su Qing got ready to go home. Mom, don't just play mahjong all day. Look how hungry you've made Dad. Her father said sternly, it's harder to keep her from playing mahjong than to keep you from staying home all day. Suddenly, her mother remembered something. I heard your place is haunted. There's a woman crying in the middle of the night. Is it true? Su Qing replied seriously, it's true. I heard it too. So, Dad, you have to cut my rent in half. It's a haunted house, otherwise I won't rent it. His father could easily see through his little scheme. But his mother thought, regardless of whether the ghost is real or not, having a girlfriend is expensive. His father adjusted his glasses. He said no earlier. Su Qing immediately changed his tune upon hearing this. Yes. Even if God himself were here, she'd still be my girlfriend. Su Qing arrived home to see the girl holding a sword, standing in the corner looking lost. Hearing Su Qing's question, the girl said she needed to take a shower, but she still didn't put the sword down. Instead, she ran to the bathroom holding it, along with her clothes. Su Qing then asked, why did you bring a sword with you when you bathed? Did something happen after I left? Did someone else come in? The girl shook her head. No. Su Qing was completely confused. Then who are you guarding against with the sword? Me. The girl still didn't turn around, but her voice was a bit flustered. No, you're a good person. After saying that, she slammed the bathroom door shut, leaving Su Qing completely baffled. But he didn't dwell on it, since she wasn't guarding against him anyway. Su Qing, a dignified grand hero. How could he be guarded against like a pervert? Su Qing sat on the sofa, listening to the splashing water from the bathroom. He tried to stop himself from caring, but he couldn't help sneaking a glance at the bathroom door. He imagined what a sight it would be to see this Tang Dynasty girl bathing. The next second, Su Qing shook his head, dispelling the distracting images. He chanted to himself, I am an upright and honorable hero. It was then that he noticed the laptop on the table. It was still on standby. Had he forgotten to turn it off? Su Qing sighed helplessly. Forget it. I'll just leave it. I still need to use it to edit videos tomorrow. A while later, the girl finished her shower, and came out carrying a hairdryer. Watching the water droplets falling from her hair, Su Qing couldn't help asking, does practicing also have a beautifying effect? You used to be exposed to the wind and sun. Even if your skin wasn't rough, it shouldn't be this delicate, right? You still say you don't know inner energy. The girl blinked her big eyes. I wanted to teach you, but you refused to learn. So, I really have to start with stance training. Everyone else just hears a ding, or claps their hands together and learns ultimate divine power. But then again, maybe later you could start a practice and beautify class. No, young people nowadays sign up for gym memberships, and barely go all year. Practice? No way. At this moment, the young woman plugged in the hairdryer, and was studying the buttons. Su Qing glanced over, got up from the sofa, and walked over to her. You're not used to this new hairdryer, are you? I'll dry it for you. The girl stared at the hairdryer for a moment, thinking. Finally, she shyly handed it to Su Qing. As Su Qing held her head, drying her hair, the girl suddenly asked, why don't you practice martial arts? Su Qing replied truthfully, nowadays, living conditions are better. We have enough food and clothing. It's natural to think about how to live more comfortably. Being skilled in martial arts is useless. Naturally, those kung fu skills were lost. Everyone likes comfort. Given a choice, who would painstakingly train in martial arts? Look at me, I'm too lazy to learn. In short, kung fu is dead. If you want to live comfortably, you have to rely on technology. Put your sword away in a moment. Why are you always holding that? The girl suddenly shouted excitedly, there's a ghost. I'm holding it for self-defense. Su Qing said nonchalantly, I told you, there are no ghosts. That's other people mistaking you for a ghost. Ghosts don't exist. The girl trembled slightly. She replied fearfully, I saw it. When you went out, I saw a ghost. As soon as I said that, even I felt a chill down my spine. But then again, what this lady says can't be taken at face value. It could just be some middle-aged woman with a face mask on taking out the trash. Thinking of this, I asked again, what did this ghost look like? Her hair was long, even longer than mine. Probably, about this long. As she spoke, the girl suddenly flipped her hair. She gave Su Qing a terrifying look. Su Qing was startled. Then what? Then her face was deathly pale, extremely pale as the steamed buns I ate that day. Su Qing quickly told her to stop, not letting the girl continue. He looked back at the room. Something felt off. What did this girl see? Could there really be a ghost? No, that's impossible. Su Qing quickly comforted her with a smile. Ghosts don't exist. You're probably just stressed and hallucinating. Dry your hair and go to sleep. The girl was still scared. Back in my hometown, ghosts are terrifying things. Su Qing agreed. They're terrifying in my hometown too, but the thing is, they don't exist. They simply can't exist, you know. The girl abruptly looked up. But they do. I really saw one. She looked completely serious. I wonder if my sword can hurt it. Su Qing felt a little panicked after hearing this. Since I've even come from the Tang Dynasty, a ghost appearing doesn't seem that outrageous, right? I should see if I can ask Uncle Zhao tomorrow to borrow the peachwood sword I used before. A moment later, Su Qing finally finished drying the girl's hair. His technique was quite good. The young woman cupped her hands around her sword. Thank you, young hero. Su Qing returned the gesture. You're welcome. Then, Su Qing told her not to overthink it. Go to sleep. He then finished his bath much faster than usual, hurriedly dressed, and ran out. After hearing her story, Su Qing also felt a bit uneasy. I can't sleep at all. I might as well organize the video I have to edit tomorrow. At this moment, he finally discovered the problem. Before going to bed that day, the girl stared blankly at the clothes in front of her. These new clothes were all bought for her by the young hero. Compared to the clothes worn by other people on the street, the ones he picked out for her. It's definitely within my acceptable range. You're such a good person, the girl said with a sigh of relief. Then she pulled a set of clothes from under her pillow. These were the clothes she had been wearing when she arrived. Compared to what she was wearing now, the shoulders were a bit narrower, and the sleeves were a little shorter. If she were still at the stronghold, her second mother would probably have altered these clothes again. The girl then remembered what the chief had once said. Martial arts are forged through fighting. If anyone looks down on you, beat them up. Beat them until they submit, then no one will dare to mess with you. But her aunt told her, a young girl like you can't even sew clothes. You're always brandishing swords and spears. How will you ever get married? At some point, tears welled up in Maisie Baojing's eyes. I want to master martial arts. Fight that disheveled ghost. I must survive. Just then, there was a knock on the girl's door. It was Su Qing. The girl looked at him suspiciously. Su Qing held up his laptop and asked, is this the ghost you saw? The startled girl jumped and prepared to draw her sword. That's it. Su Qing was speechless. As expected, the moment he opened the laptop, he found the horror movie was playing halfway through. He checked the watch history. Good heavens, if he let her continue watching, the world would become a high fantasy martial arts world. Su Qing sighed. Go to sleep. I'll explain to you tomorrow. After saying that, he slammed the laptop shut. See, now that I've sealed the ghost, you can sleep peacefully, right? The next morning, the girl woke up and murmured. The ghost really didn't appear again. She grabbed her sword and opened the door. This was what she promised Su Qing earlier, to leave the door open for him to watch her practice her swordsmanship. It seems the young hero isn't up yet, but I should still practice. In these unfamiliar times, I can only protect myself by honing my martial arts skills. I didn't wake up until she finished practicing and was playing with the cat. Su Qing finally woke up. Looking at the girl who fed cat food to Dong Gua, Winter Melon, Su Qing couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Everything is moving in a good direction. If I were to encounter a random street check now, she's been able to handle almost everything. I already have female privilege, plus my looks are a bonus. It's much better than if a big, bearded man had crossed over. If it had been our leader who came through, carrying a broadsword and hiding in the hallway, he probably would have been arrested on the spot. Su Qing asked while brushing her teeth, what does your leader look like? Does he have a beard? The girl thought for a moment, he's a bit taller than you, and he has a beard. By the way, why don't you have a beard? Su Qing smiled, because I'm a scholar, not a rough and rugged warrior. The girl looked a little shocked. The scholars where I come from also grow beards. Could it be that you? Su Qing almost lost it. We have something for shaving here. It's called a razor, remember that. Clean yourself up, let's go out to eat. The girl suddenly said somewhat guiltily, right. That phone you gave me yesterday seems to be broken. It wasn't responding when I woke up this morning. Is it expensive to fix? Su Qing casually put on a hoodie. Not. That thing's probably just dead. The two of them went out. Su Qing instructed. It's the weekend today, you need to learn how to use the phone quickly. If I go out, you can send me voice messages or call me. You'll need it for making and spending money later too. Look here, this is your wallet. It's empty now, I'll transfer 100 to you. Then you'll have 100 yuan to spend. The girl obediently clicked confirm. Su Qing then smiled and said, this 100, consider it a loan from me. You can pay me back when you get your wages. Actually, if you think about it carefully, very few people can borrow money from themselves, but those few haven't borrowed any either. So this is the first time in my life I've lent money to someone else. Thinking of this, Su Qing put on a nonchalant expression. I'm giving you my first time. On the other end, Qin Hao got off work and returned home. He had just made a bowl of porridge and eaten a steamed bun. When his father asked him how many thieves he caught last night, Qin Hao was speechless. Where are there so many thieves to catch? It's peacetime now. Even begging is more profitable than being a thief. His father suddenly raised his voice. That Qingzi kid, even though he's not a cop, caught a thief. Qin Hao was dumbfounded. What did you say? When did this happen? Just a few days ago. Qin Hao completely lost it. That guy didn't even bother telling me. I'm going to give him a good scolding. He's so disorganized and undisciplined, he must be seriously criticized. But that's not what my father wanted to say. I heard he's got a girlfriend. She's living at his place. Qin Hao, however, thought it was only natural. That kid's got the looks and the height. It's not surprising, but feeling his father's strange gaze, Qin Hao still felt a little uncomfortable. His father couldn't help but taunt. So you also know she's pretty. Those who are good-looking know to make an effort to find a girlfriend. What about you? Qin Hao, with a righteous look, replied, I don't have time. I have to catch thieves. So, have you caught them? His father's words truly stunned Qin Hao. Moments later, Qin Hao, focused on his meal, suddenly received a phone call. He was invited to go out and have fun that evening, but but he declined because he was on duty that night. On the other end, Su Qing also received a call. Hearing it wasn't to go to a bar, Su Qing agreed. He even planned to bring a girl along to see what it was all about. After hanging up, Su Qing told the girl, "I'll take you out for some fun tonight. Remember to watch my cues, and don't mess around." Su Qing briefed the girl on the way. "There might be a lot of people, but it's okay, eat and drink whatever you want." Soon, the two arrived at the entrance of the KTV. Tonight, Su Qing was going to show the girl some new experiences. They entered the KTV. The girl felt it was noisy, too noisy. Su Qing pushed open a private room door. A large group of diverse people came into view. A young man with highlighted hair turned around and greeted them. "Yo, Qing's here." This person was Su Qing's best friend, Wang Zi. After they sat down, Wang Zi handed him a tablet. "Been waiting for you. Wanna sing a song?" Su Qing lowered his head. "Wait a moment, I'll sit down for a bit." The young woman sat beside Su Qing, looking around. But she didn't dare move. She seemed a little restrained. Just then, Su Qing grabbed a handful of nuts and offered them to her. "Are you hungry? If you are, eat these to tide you over. With your strength, these nuts and hazelnuts. I thought you could just crush it." The girl took the nut, but gestured to Su Qing that she couldn't hear him. Su Qing then remembered the loud music, and leaned in close to her ear, saying, "I said, you can crush this and eat it. Try it." Obediently, the girl pinched a hazelnut between her fingers, crushing it. Then she popped it into her mouth. Su Qing smiled. "Do you have these where you come from? I remember it's been around for a while, but it's her first time trying this. I don't know. I've never seen it before, but it's delicious." She took another bite. The unique flavor burst on her taste buds. She earnestly told Su Qing that it was delicious. Su Qing chuckled. "If you like it, eat more." He looked around the KTV. Well, this place. No one would notice her, and even if they did, they'd only be surprised by her strength. A moment later, Su Qing suddenly grabbed a beer bottle. Come on, Wang Zi, let's have a drink." Wang Zi stopped singing. "Hey, you, I was in the middle of my song." Despite the complaint, they clinked their bottles together from afar. He tilted his head back and gulped it down. Seeing how heartily Su Qing was drinking, the girl came right up to him, and said with sparkling eyes, "I want to drink that." Su Qing quickly waved his hand in refusal. Girls need to learn to protect themselves outside. You can't drink alcohol. It's a dangerous thing. The girl looked a little unconvinced. "I've had alcohol before, I won't get drunk." "No way. The alcohol here is definitely stronger than your rice wine. Even if you won't get drunk, you still can't drink." The girl was serious. "I just want to taste it, just once." Her whole face was saying she wanted to drink. Su Qing finally sighed helplessly. He took out a cup, and poured her a glass. "You can only taste it, just once, okay?" The girl then lifted the cup, and took a small sip. After a moment, she instantly regretted it. "It's not good." Su Qing couldn't hear what she said. They leaned close together again. "I said, it's not good." Seeing their intimate posture, Wang Zi immediately pointed at them and teased. He, what are you doing? In broad daylight, under the clear sky. What are you doing here?" Su Qing waved his hand dismissively. Get lost. Go sing your song." But Wang Zi sat down next to him, and put his arm around Su Qing's neck, asking, "I've been wanting to ask, is this your girlfriend? Aren't you going to introduce her to me?" Su Qing immediately shook off his hand. "Just a regular friend. From the countryside." He then turned to the girl. "This is my buddy, Wang Zijuan. A real, loaded landlord, old money." Wang Zijuan had a look of disbelief. "Really just a regular friend? Then can I get to know her?" Su Qing told him to get lost. Wang Zijuan was immediately unhappy. What's wrong with me?" Su Qing mocked him. "Are you as handsome as me? Are you as tall as me?" Wang Zijuan replied without thinking, "I'm rich." Su Qing was speechless for a moment. "Forget it. Have you even started this thing yet? I'm so hungry my stomach's touching my back." Wang Zijuan ran off to the side to pick some songs. "There are still a few people who haven't arrived. What's the rush? Sing a couple of songs first." "How's he really? He's on duty tonight." Su Qing said with exasperation. "How's he is a guardian of the people now. What does a lazy good-for-nothing parasite like you know?" Wang Zijuan ignored Su Qing, and started to sing his heart out. The young people started dancing on the dance floor. The girl looked bewildered and couldn't help but ask Su Qing, "What are so many people doing here? I think it's so loud." Su Qing waved his hand, indicating she shouldn't mind. "Just think of it as a kind of celebration. It's mainly because that guy's girlfriend's birthday, so I invited some people over to liven things up. It's easy to build rapport in a place like this when you're having fun. Everyone who comes here has a different purpose. Some come specifically to drink, others like to sing, and some want to make friends. Su Qing said while watching the girl crack a few hazelnuts. You're so strong. Crack a few for me too. The girl grabbed a handful and squeezed them hard. The hazelnut cracked with a sharp sound. Su Qing took the kernel and popped it into his mouth. Thanks. Say, can you sing? The girl shook her head. I've never sung before. I don't know. Su Qing smiled. Even if you could, I wouldn't let you. Wait till this great hero shows you how it's done. Just then, a bespectacled man with a gloomy face pushed open the door and walked in. Su Qing was taken aback. Why did this guy come too? The atmosphere changed. At this moment, Su Qing told her that there would be a super big cake later. The girl immediately started drooling. Cake was her favorite. At this moment, Wang Zijuan handed over a microphone. Qingzi, let's sing a song together. After some thought, Su Qing took the microphone. I'll just sing one song. But the little girl suddenly turned into a curious child, leaning close to the microphone, and poking it. What is this? She asked. As soon as she spoke, the little girl was startled. Why is my voice so loud? Su Qing quickly covered the microphone. Don't be scared. This thing is called a microphone. It's not some kind of demon or monster. I'll explain it to you in detail later. Su Qing gave her a helpless look. At least when she goes shopping later, she won't be staring at her own bag in astonishment when she hears a broadcast, and exclaiming, this person's power is so profound. He watched her bewildered expression. Su Qing suddenly had a strong urge, a sudden desire to pinch her cheeks. He reached out his hand almost involuntarily, but was met with the girl's scrutinizing gaze. Startled, Su Qing quickly withdrew his hand. I'll have to pinch them sooner or later. Then came the moment of passionate duet between Su Qing and Wang Zijuan. After finishing the song, Wang Zijuan looked around. It looks like everyone's here. Let's begin then. A tall cake was wheeled in by the waiter. Wang Zijuan stood before everyone and spoke. Thank you all for waiting. I won't waste any time. Today is my girlfriend's birthday. But when he turned around, he discovered that his girlfriend was gone. A girl thought for a moment. It seemed like she saw her go out earlier. She didn't know where she went. Su Qing was also speechless, celebrating his girlfriend's birthday, but he realized his girlfriend was missing when it was time to cut the cake. Wang Zijuan poked his head out and looked around in the hallway, but still couldn't find his girlfriend. He could only return to the private room and tell everyone, I don't know where she went. Let's keep playing. We'll do the cake when she gets back. Let's keep drinking. Su Qing leaned in and asked, new girlfriend? No, we've been seeing each other for over a month. That long? Sounds like you're about to break up. Get lost. We're truly in love. The girl watched them bicker seriously. Suddenly, she stepped forward and asked Su Qing, is a girlfriend the same as a wife? Su Qing scratched his head awkwardly. No, girlfriend is just a term. It means different things to different people. For example, his girlfriend is going to be someone else's wife in the future. Zhu Zijuan was about to curse. But then he thought, he's actually right. But the girl's words stunned Su Qing. What about yours? Su Qing looked embarrassed. I'm a homebody. For a homebody, any object can be a girlfriend. It could even just be a concept. Wang Zijuan didn't believe him. Are you two really just friends? What else would we be? Su Qing knew he couldn't let him keep asking. I quickly laughed it off and changed the subject. I shouldn't have brushed that girl off last time. Now, seriously explaining what a girlfriend is, would definitely make Wang Zijuan think I'm an idiot. Wang Zijuan glanced at his watch. Seeing that it was getting late, he hurried towards the door. I'm going to call my girlfriend. We'll talk later. Su Qing waved his hand, gesturing for him to hurry up, but just then, a discordant voice rang out. Yo, Qingji, changed girlfriends again. Su Qing didn't even turn his head. None of your business, he said. The newcomer was the bespectacled man who had entered earlier. Don't be so fierce, Qingji. I just wanted to ask, how you get a girlfriend prettier than the last every time. How did you find it? Why couldn't I? Su Qing immediately laughed, and turned around with a mocking expression, saying, because you're too ugly. The man with glasses wasn't angry at all. Brother Qing, don't be so distant. Let me offer you a drink. Su Qing didn't give him any face. No, you want to try that sarcastic tone again? Liangzi, I don't want to deal with you today. Just stay put, okay? Wang Zijuan, entering at that very moment, saw the two at loggerheads, and thought, holy crap, are they going at it? Hey, you two, talk nicely. Don't fight. Liangzi, honestly, why did you come and provoke him? Liangzi smirked. What are you talking about? We're just having a drink. It's been so long, how can catching up be called causing trouble? Su Qing glared at Wang Zijuan. You called him here. Wang Zijuan quickly explained. I just thought maybe you two could reconcile. Is this really irreconcilable? Su Qing said casually. Where do I even begin? I never thought this whole thing. Liang Zi adjusted his glasses. Of course, what even is this? It's over. I just wanted to ask Brother Qing for some advice, offer him a drink, that's all. Su Qing didn't give an inch. Wasn't hitting you last time painful enough? The girl, seeing the tense atmosphere between the three, are they going to fight? Wang Zijuan was also confused at this moment. When did you two fight? What are you, a child? Come on, give me some face. Let me celebrate my girlfriend's birthday properly, okay? Liang Zi offered a way out with a smile. Oh, look at this mess. I just came over to offer a toast. How did it turn into this? Qing Ji, have a drink with me. Then everything will be alright. Su Qing replied directly. I won't drink. No way. Liang Zi turned to the girl. Then how about I toast you, sister-in-law? Look how beautiful your sister-in-law is. Su Qing's face darkened. She doesn't drink either, and she's not my wife. Don't push it. The girl finally replied. Right, I'm not his wife. Remember that. Don't talk to him, he's disgusting. Ultimately, Wang Zijuan acted as the peacemaker, and pushed the two apart. Su Qing also sat down and started drinking by himself. Just now, Su Qing brought a girl to the KTV, and almost got into a fight with someone. The host, Wang Zijuan, asked Su Qing, when did you two fight? Su Qing was expressionless. That was in the past. If I'd known he was here, I wouldn't have come. It's disgusting. Wang Zijuan was also speechless. If I'd known you two were like this, I wouldn't have called you over. The girl, listening to their conversation, also asked, why did he think I was his sister-in-law? Su Qing said with a straight face, because he's ugly. Su Qing pointed at Liang Zi. Look, am I not more handsome than him? The girl nodded from afar and said, yes, you are indeed more attractive than him. Su Qing moved closer to the girl. Aren't you also very good-looking? With two good-looking people like us sitting together, it's called a perfect match. Naturally, someone with a brain like his would think we're a couple. Hearing this, Wang Zijuan was immediately unhappy. Hold on, what do you mean, something wrong with my brain? At first, I thought you two were together too. The girl was still a little confused. But why would a talented man and a beautiful woman be seen as a couple? Su Qing's face was slightly flushed with alcohol. I don't know what their thought process is. It's not quite normal, so it's best not to talk to them. Just then, Wang Zijuan's girlfriend opened the door and walked in. Wang Zijuan quickly got up and called the waiter. Turn off the lights and cut the cake. My girlfriend is here, we can start. The huge cake was unwrapped. The private room was suddenly filled with joy. The young woman's eyes were full of anticipation. Wow, it's so big. Can we eat all of this? Su Qing nodded. But in the next second, he suddenly felt something wasn't right. Can we finish such a big cake? He pulled the girl's hand. He made her crouch behind a table. You stay here, don't move. Don't come out until I tell you to. I'll get you a big piece of cake later. The girl leaned on the table, filled with anticipation. She wondered what the cake would taste like. But why did they have to hide to eat cake? Were there some rules? It was really exciting. The next second, the atmosphere in the private room suddenly changed. Someone slammed the cake into another person's face. The private room immediately descended into chaos. Cake was flying everywhere. The girl was stunned. Looking terrified, she reached out to grab it, but could only watch helplessly as the person-sized cake collapsed. Fortunately, Su Qing finally returned at this moment. Why did you come out? I told you to hide. Su Qing was also covered in cake, but he was protecting a whole piece in his arms. Su Qingshun sat down next to the girl. Those crazy people wore me out. I knew it. Wang Zijuan bought such a big cake, just so they could have a cake fight. Here, this is the piece I saved before they started. It's a huge piece. Try it. The girl silently took the cake. She gently forked a piece and put it in her mouth, but her eyes weren't as bright as expected. Su Qing asked expectantly, how is it? Is it good? The girl's voice was a little low. It's delicious. But she thought of her aunt. She really wanted her aunt to try this thing called cake. Her aunt couldn't even bear to eat too much hubing, flatbread. She would just drink a few large bowls of water each time. If you were to eat such a delicious cake, you'd definitely be smiling so hard your eyes would close, watching everyone throwing the cakes around. The girl asked Su Qing with a hint of regret, why would you throw something so delicious? Su Qing could only explain, because that's one of its uses. If you like it, I'll buy you one next time. We can eat at home. It won't be wasted at all. I still don't understand. Why throw away such delicious food instead of eating it? Intentionally dirtying clean clothes, happy feet, having a peaceful life but seeking thrills. Is this the best of times? Is this a golden age? Seeing that everyone had made enough of a fuss, Su Qing stood up. I'll go to the bathroom and clean up this cream. Then we'll go home. The girl obediently sat on the sofa and waited. Suddenly, she heard a voice beside her ear. Sister-in-law, Qingqing just left you here alone. What's your name? Let's get to know each other. It was Liangzi, who didn't get along with Su Qing. The girl gave him a cold look. I'm not talking to you, but Liangzi wouldn't let it go. Don't be so mean. Did Qingge tell you to say that? Look how clean you are. Weren't you playing with us just now? Come here, let me give you a smear. Saying that, Liangzi reached out his finger, preparing to smear the cream from his finger onto the girl. The girl quickly stood up and exclaimed in shock. What are you doing? Don't mind, everyone's dirty. You being all clean makes you stand out, he said as he moved his finger closer and closer. The girl watched in horror, her hands clenching involuntarily, making cracking sounds. She seemed to be contemplating whether to hit him. Just now, while Su Qing was away, Liang Zi tried to harass the girl, but Su Qing saw him just as he returned. Without a word, Su Qing punched him in the stomach. Liang Zi immediately doubled over in pain. After a brief pause, Liang Zi suddenly punched Su Qing in the face. Su Qing was sent flying and landed hard on the table. Hearing the commotion, host Wang Zijuan hurried in to check. At this moment, Su Qing was already on top of Liang Zi, throwing punches with abandon. Hearing Wang Zijuan shout, everyone rushed forward to try and pull them apart. But Su Qing still clung tightly to Liang Zi's collar. Then, a small hand suddenly reached out, and gently pulled Su Qing away. The others looked at the girl in surprise. This girl is so strong. Liang Zi was being held up by Wang Zijuan. He stared intently at Su Qing. Wang Zijuan couldn't help but complain to himself. Why did I stupidly bring these two together? Su Qing pinched his nose and blew out the remaining blood. Then he smiled at Wang Zijuan. Look, a perfectly good birthday party's been ruined by this guy. Why don't you give him a couple of punches too? Wang Zijuan turned to the crowd. Everyone, I'm so sorry. Let's call it a night. We'll get together again another time. After everyone left, the atmosphere became somewhat heavy. Finally, Su Qing spoke first. So, if you're not convinced, get up and we'll keep fighting. If you don't want to fight, I'm leaving. Liangzi stared intently at him, but he didn't say anything more. Instead, Wang Zijuan was annoyed. Why are we still fighting? Grow up. Are you okay? Your face is a mess. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Wang Zijuan went to open the door. Who is it? We're busy in here. To his surprise, it was two police officers. We received a call. Someone reported a fight here. Wang Zijuan was stunned when he saw who it was. He murmured, Hao Zi. Following behind the older officer, was Qin Hao, who was on duty tonight. Qin Hao entered the room, and looked at Su Qing, who had tissue paper stuffed up his nose, and Liang Zi, who was sitting on the floor. Qin Hao couldn't help but complain. You guys are really wild. Wang Zijuan quickly smoothed things over. Oh, we were just singing and got carried away. I tripped and fell. Someone must have mistaken it for a fight and called the police. See, it's just a misunderstanding. The veteran officer walked directly up to the two and asked, what's going on with you two? Su Qing subtly shifted his body to shield the girl. It's nothing, just like he said. I drank too much and accidentally fell. He looked at the two of them. The veteran officer thought to himself, this one looks more serious. As long as these two are okay, the one with glasses is probably fine too. So, the veteran officer started with the routine procedure. Let me see your ID cards. Su Qing recited his ID number. The old officer wrote it down while continuing to ask. So, what you're saying is, there was no fighting. Su Qing smiled and waved his hand. No, why would we fight? I don't know who's that bored. We were just messing around. But then, Liang Zi suddenly spoke up. There was fighting. He hit me. Look at this mess. How can a birthday celebration turn into this? Qin Hao quickly asked Su Qing, did you guys actually fight? Su Qing looked indifferent and said, so what if we did? Let's go talk about it at your place. Wang Zijuan quickly intervened. Come on, we were just messing around. There's no talk of fighting or anything. We were just a bit excited from drinking. The veteran officer couldn't be bothered to ask any more questions. Stop arguing, everyone. Please come back to the station with me. Su Qing then instructed Wang Zijuan. Please help me take my sister home. I'll go with him. Though puzzled as to why he kept referring to her as both his girlfriend and his sister, Wang Zijuan still agreed. But the veteran officer said, no need, get up. You're all witnesses. We need to understand the situation from multiple perspectives. Su Qing pulled the paper strip out of his nose. He thought, oh no. He quickly explained to the officer, my sister is in high school. She hasn't even finished her homework. Wang Zijuan also stepped forward. I can go. You can ask me anything. I've been here the whole time. I know best whether they hit me or not. But the veteran officer remained unmoved. We agreed to do this together. Why so much nonsense? Qin Hao shrugged helplessly. Don't look at me. I'm just a rookie, a follower. My words don't count. Su Qing was still making a last-ditch effort. My cousin just came out of the village. Qin Hao was also getting impatient. I'm just going to check things out. I'm not going to eat you, am I? A moment later, they walked out of the KTV. Qin Hao asked Su Qing, where did this cousin of yours come from? Is she still in high school? How old is she? But we're like brothers. Your cousin is my cousin. By the way, what's our little cousin's name? Su Qing pretended to be speechless. Are you interrogating me? She's still in high school and hasn't gotten her ID card yet. She's just staying with me for a few days. Her name is Jiang He, got it? Qin Hao turned to Jiang He, got it. I'm your brother Qin, come to me if you need anything. Standing at the entrance of the police station, Su Qing couldn't help but feel a little worried. I really should be more careful now that I'm raising someone from ancient times. However, Jiang He was jotting something down. She kept muttering about her cousin in high school not having an ID. Noticing Su Qing's gaze, she gave herself a pep talk with a determined look. Su Qing smiled slightly and said, you're right. I have to face it eventually. This is just getting familiar with it in advance. A moment later, Su Qing and Liang Zi were led to a room by a senior officer. The senior officer sat at the head of the table. All right, tell me, what happened? Which one of you wants to go first? Su Qing spoke up first. We had a fight. I threw the first punch, because he was cursing. The senior officer was clearly dissatisfied. Tell me in detail. Then let him tell it. You then. Tell me exactly what happened. Liang Zi chuckled inwardly. This trip to the station might not be worthwhile. But I definitely didn't lose out. It doesn't matter who was right or wrong. This kid started it, so I can make a fuss. He's putting on an innocent face. It was just a joke at first. Then he hit me. I didn't even know what happened, and he just hit me. The veteran officer was speechless. What kind of explanation was that? He glared at them, demanding a detailed account. Do you understand what detailed account means? Are you kidding me? What did you say? And what did he say back? Then, which sentence triggered the fight? How did he attack you, and how did you retaliate? Got it? After hearing this, the two fell silent. They didn't even know where to begin. Seeing that neither of them spoke, the veteran officer said again, what's there to think about? Just tell us how it happened. He looked at Su Qing. Why don't you go first? Before Su Qing could react, Liang Zi suddenly replied, I'll tell you. At first, I wanted to offer him a toast, but he refused. As Liang Zi spoke, Su Qing worried about Jiang He. After all, for Jiang He, it's still too early to be involved with the police. She's next door being interrogated by Qin Hao. I don't know how it's going. Suddenly, the veteran officer raised his voice and shouted, what are you spacing out for? I'm asking you a question. Su Qing snapped back to his senses and said, more or less. It's just that he started it. He was being sarcastic and insulting me first. That's why I hit him. Anyway, no matter what, I have to insist that he provoked me first. Silence fell over the room. No one spoke. The older officer paused, then asked, so, how do you want to resolve this now? Shake hands and make up. Liang Zi clearly didn't want to let Su Qing off the hook. Shouldn't he be arrested and detained for this? The veteran officer then explained, this is considered a mutual assault. If we were to detain anyone, we'd detain both of you. If you think your injuries are serious, then go get them examined. You're injured in the stomach, right? It looks just a little red. An examination probably won't show anything. Su Qing knew this guy still had to work, so he couldn't accept being detained together. So, smiling, Su Qing offered him two choices. Either we reflect on this and shake hands and make up, or we both get detained. Liang Zi slammed his hand on the table in anger. But he started it. The old officer didn't bother to argue further. He's fined 500, you're fined 200. He gets 8 days, you get 5, or do you accept the mediation? Which one? Liang Zi gritted his teeth and sat back down dejectedly. Shortly after, Su Qing walked out of the mediation room. Qin Hao was waiting for him at the door. That injury on your face looks like it'll take a while to heal. It's so late, shall I give you a ride back? Su Qing refused directly. No need. Isn't it bad for you to leave your post during work hours? It's late at night, there's nothing to do. Su Qing didn't finish his sentence, when Qin Hao suddenly covered his mouth, and said with a serious expression, don't talk nonsense here. There's a mysterious power here. Don't jinx it. A moment later, Su Qing, panting, asked Qin Hao, "Where are my sister and the others?" "Outside the main gate. I asked my sister to wait inside. She refused. So Wang Zijuan is out there with her, braving the wind. You know, I think my sister is a little slow." Outside, Wang Zijuan glanced at his phone. Damn, it's almost 1 o'clock. Why isn't Qingzi done yet? Luckily, Su Qing finally came out at that moment. Wang Zijuan originally wanted to drive them home, but Su Qing refused. Wang Zijuan could only wait for a taxi with them. Unfortunately, the main road was deserted late at night, without a single car in sight. A gust of wind blew by, and Wang Zijuan and Su Qing shivered from the cold. Wang Zijuan couldn't help but complain, "It's so late at night. It's quite cold." Then he noticed Jiang He next to him. "Wait a minute, shouldn't you take off your jacket and put it on her?" Hearing this, they were both stunned. "She's not cold." "Yeah, I'm not cold." Wang Zijuan was speechless. "I really don't understand their relationship." Just now, Su Qing and Jiang He finally returned to their apartment complex from the police station. Su Qing walked in front, Jiang He silently followed behind. It made Su Qing feel like he had gone out partying, then come home drunk alone in the middle of the night. He felt quite annoyed, so he turned and asked Jiang He, "Can you walk faster and come beside me? Right now you're like a little tagalong." Jiang He immediately became unhappy. "I'm not a tagalong. You won't be if you walk next to me." Hearing this, Jiang He quickly took a couple of steps to walk beside Su Qing. As they walked side by side, Su Qing teased, "Okay, I now pronounce you not a tagalong." "I never was." The two finally arrived home. Su Qing collapsed directly onto the sofa. "I'm exhausted today. It's finally over." Suddenly, Su Qing sat up again and asked, when Hao Zi was questioned at the police station, "What did you answer?" "I'm your younger sister. In high school, we went to karaoke for my birthday." If they asked anything else, I didn't speak. Su Qing was stunned. "Girl, you're so smart." No wonder Hao Zi said she's a bit clueless. Jiang He played with Dong Gua, feeling a bit emotional. The officials here don't seem so scary after all. Of course not. As long as you don't show your violent side, nothing will happen. If you stay there long enough, they'll even feed and house you. After saying this, Su Qing stretched. I mulled over today's events. I had a fight and didn't lose, took Jiang He out for a bit, and even saw the inside of a police station. Besides taking up too much time, it was all pretty good. The most important thing is how Jiang He reacted. He turned to look at Jiang He. "Have you noticed you're very reliant on me now? You listen to everything I say. That kid provoked you, but you didn't do anything." Jiang He thought for a moment and said, "I don't understand anything." "That's to be expected. Aren't you afraid I'll sell you?" Jiang He's voice betrayed no emotion. "You won't. You're a good person." Jiang He knew clearly, since he was providing her food and lodging, and had been helping her. If she didn't trust him now, then I might as well wander the streets alone. She suddenly turned back and told Su Qing, "That person didn't touch my face." Su Qing replied in a matter-of-fact tone, "I know. If he had, you would have already knocked him out." Speaking of this, Su Qing suddenly became a little embarrassed. "Look at us, fighting. Doesn't it feel like watching kids playing house?" Jiang He was completely dumbfounded. "You call this a fight? Are you kidding me?" Ultimately, Jiang He didn't laugh at him. Instead, she asked Su Qing why he hit him. Su Qing looked disgusted. "Because he deserved it. You have to beat up people like that. But let me make this clear. If anyone messes with you in the future, at most, use this much force. Don't hurt them. Otherwise, you'll go to jail." There are a lot of people like this in the world. They can't stand seeing others do well, especially those they know. It's like they're sick. Jiang He was dumbfounded. There are people like that, of course. There are two kinds of people I despise the most. First, he's sarcastic, and second, he's a simp. And that guy happens to be both. This goes beyond Jiang He's knowledge. What's a simp? It's a creature that either has everything, or is destined to die. You'll understand later. Seeing Jiang He's clueless look, Su Qing told her to hurry up and take a shower and stop thinking about it. Soon, the sound of running water came from the bathroom. Su Qing sat alone in the living room, sighing. It's actually quite nice having someone to talk to at home. If only we could lie down together after the shower, cuddle up and sleep. Wait, no. Su Qing's eyes suddenly widened. How strange. Why would I have that thought? Just then, Jiang He came out of the bathroom. She walked straight to Su Qing. Jiang He held a hairdryer in her hand, and looked at him, blushing. Su Qing suddenly stood up. "Dry your hair yourself today. I'm going to take a shower." Jiang He stared blankly at him, remaining silent, until Su Qing finished showering. Jiang He finally spoke to him. I see a lot of girls with short hair on the street. Is it normal to cut your hair short here? Su Qing suddenly turned his head. You want to cut it? Kind of. How can Su Qing agree? Don't. Long hair looks so much better. Thinking of how Jiang He would look with short hair, Su Qing fell silent. He quickly walked forward, and took the hairdryer from Jiang He's hand. How about this? I'll dry your hair for you from now on. Don't think about cutting your hair short anymore. Jiang He nodded. So, here in your world, is it also normal to dry a girl's hair? Su Qing immediately felt guilty, but he still said, normal, totally normal. Then they stopped talking, and quietly dried her hair. A moment later, Su Qing finished drying her hair. She turned off the light and prepared to go back to her room to sleep. After they said goodnight to each other, Jiang He returned to her room, and searched for a lullaby on her phone. Then she hid under the covers and listened to the music. The next morning, as soon as Su Qing got up, she saw Jiang He sitting in front of the computer. Su Qing asked her if she wanted to go out for breakfast. Jiang He told him seriously, I'm working. Su Qing had no choice but to go out and buy food. He even felt that, since being with Jiang He, his life had become much more regular. Before, what was breakfast? After Su Qing left, the room suddenly became quiet. Jiang He peeked. After confirming Su Qing had left, she quickly typed a question on the keyboard. What is a girlfriend? Looking at the explanation on Baidu Encyclopedia, Jiang He fell silent, lost in thought. This girl who had time traveled from the Tang dynasty, now had one big question. What is a girlfriend? And, are there ghosts in this world? Just as she was searching on Baidu, Su Qing returned after buying breakfast, so he called her over to eat. Jiang He, however, thought that she couldn't leave her post while at work, leaving Su Qing speechless. There are breaks even during work hours, like having breakfast, for example. Hearing this, Jiang He quickly turned her head. I'll eat. Remembering how Jiang He could eat 20 buns in one sitting, Su Qing added, I didn't buy too many, just enough to take the edge off our hunger. It'll be lunchtime soon. Jiang He took a bun and suddenly asked, I've been playing for a while now. Can I start helping others? According to what he said before, one mining run earns 18 yuan. That's enough to buy 6 buns. Su Qing took out his phone. Wait a minute, I'll find you an account. Let's see if you can do it. Anyway, playing games is just to give her something to do, so she doesn't go out and scare people at night. Hearing that she could start earning money, Jiang He's eyes lit up. Su Qing was also very pleased. After she gets a better understanding of this world, I'll find her something more reliable to do. Just then, Jiang He suddenly exclaimed excitedly, wow, it's filled with meat. After finishing the bun, Jiang He started drinking her soy milk. After a big sip, she said with feeling, this order is really delicious. Su Qing was puzzled. It's not like it's your first time eating this, but it's really good. And yesterday's cake, too, delicious. Everything here is delicious. Su Qing smiled slightly. Of course, it's supposed to be delicious. By the way, when is your birthday? I'll make you a big cake, just for you. Jiang He's voice suddenly lowered. I don't know. Hearing this answer, Su Qing also fell silent, but then he said with a smile, how about the day you arrived? Let's make that day your birthday in this world. What do you think? Jiang He was stunned for a moment. Can I do that? But in the next second, she smiled. Can I really? Then I can eat that cake next year at this time. Looking at her expectant expression, I didn't expect just a cake could make her so happy. Su Qing felt a pang of guilt. But then I said, actually, we can do it today. I'll buy one later. Consider it making up for this year's. Jiang He's face lit up. Really? Thank you, young hero. But as soon as the words left her mouth, she suddenly realized something, and said awkwardly, actually, never mind. It's too much trouble. Something as delicious as cake must be expensive. Su Qing grinned. It's not expensive, it's not expensive. Just wait and eat. Su Qing, pulling out his phone to start choosing a cake, suddenly remembered something. By the way, did you bring any copper coins? I remember during the Kaiyuan era, they all used copper coins, right? Jiang He shook her head. No, I don't have any copper coins. Second aunt usually manages the money. I have some small pieces of silver sewn into the corner of my robe. Second aunt sewed them in for me, in case of emergencies. Jiang He habitually reached for the corner of her robe, but the empty swing of her sleeve stopped her. No one would ever again nag at her, while stuffing money into her clothes. Su Qing felt a pang of regret as well. Who could have imagined that leaving home would lead her here? And who could have imagined that the copper coins, worthless back then, would be worth so much silver now? Perhaps this is the power of time. Elsewhere, Qin Hao had just gotten off work and returned home. As soon as he entered the door, he saw a little yellow puppy in the house. His father told him, "This is a pup from old Wang's Dahe. I'm leaving it to you to train. Train it like a police dog, and then I'll take it for walks." Qin Hao was dumbfounded. "How do I know how to train a dog? Aren't you a policeman? Don't you train police dogs?" "I'm a policeman, but I don't know how to defuse bombs either." Old Qin didn't want to say much. "Anyway, this dog raised by a cop is a police dog." Qin Hao was about to leave, but suddenly remembered something and turned back to ask, "Does that Qingzi guy have a cousin?" His father also looked puzzled. "Qingzi has a cousin? I've never heard of it." "What? Taken a fancy to the girl?" Qin Hao collapsed onto the sofa, lifeless. "Let me just ask." Actually, Qin Hao and Su Qing's families are very close. Before they were even born, their fathers had arranged a marriage for them, but they both ended up having boys, so the engagement was called off. Old Qin walked by, cradling a puppy. "Why are you asking about her?" "No reason, I just saw a girl yesterday. Qingzi said she's his cousin. She's quite pretty." "Pretty? Wait, I'll ask Lao Su about her sometime." Qin Hao didn't think much of it at first. He just thought she seemed a bit naive. But thinking back to Su Qing's behavior at the KTV, it's not exactly strange, but the whole thing just seems a bit deliberate. Could it be that I've become too obsessed with being a cop? Jiang He, wandering around in the middle of the night wearing a night suit, caused the complex to hire a Taoist priest to perform an exorcism. Although no one's seen any ghosts since then, Uncle Zhao now laments at the gate every day, saying there are some things you just can't disbelieve. "You said I've lived most of my life, and I've seen everything, but I never expected this." Su Qing could only smile awkwardly and say nothing. He thought to himself that later, after Uncle Zhao retires, when he's strolling with the other elderly folks, he'll embellish these stories with a bit of exaggeration, and it'll definitely be a story of my years as a security guard. If our grandson grows up and retells this on Douyin, TikTok, he'll definitely get over 1 million likes. After walking quite a distance, Su Qing softly said, "Look, you scared that old man so badly." Jiang He lowered her head and softly replied, "I won't do it again." Then, somewhat unconvinced, she asked Su Qing, "Why does everyone think I'm your girlfriend?" Su Qing's expression remained calm. "Let them think what they want. It's not true anyway, and I already told them. There's nothing I can do if they don't believe me." As Su Qing spoke, he removed a fallen leaf from Jiang He's hair. Let's go get some kumquat lemon tea." Jiang He tossed her hair, but she had her own thoughts. She didn't know why others thought that way. "But we're both innocent, we sleep in separate rooms. We haven't crossed any lines. At most, we eat together and go shopping together. Occasionally, I help him dry his hair." The young hero is right. As long as my conscience is clear, it's fine. After thinking it through, Jiang He's steps became lighter. A moment later, Jiang He, holding a lemon tea, asked Su Qing, "What do girlfriends usually do?" "I try to avoid it, so they don't misunderstand." Su Qing thought seriously. A girlfriend probably means shopping together, taking walks together, eating together, and living together, things like that. Jiang He felt more and more that something wasn't right. "Oh right, and drinking milk tea together." Hearing this, Jiang He was completely dumbfounded. Her eyes went wide. She stood there, her voice trembling slightly. Then I. Su Qing immediately waved his hand, indicating she shouldn't worry. "Your identity is special. You can't be judged by ordinary standards, so you're an exception." Although Su Qing said this, Jiang He still felt regretful. Why can't I drink something so delicious, if I'm not his girlfriend? She looked at the trash can beside her, hesitating whether to throw it away. But in the end, the food won over her reason. She hurried a few steps to catch up to Su Qing and said, "As long as our conscience is clear, it's okay, right?" Su Qing had no idea what she was thinking, and said matter-of-factly, "That's right, we're completely innocent. It's no big deal." Soon, the two arrived at the cake shop. Looking at the cake in Su Qing's hand, Jiang He thought to herself that her curiosity about him was growing. This cake must be expensive, so she asked Su Qing, "You said last time that a righteous person helps others solve their problems. So, young hero, do you have any problems you need my help to solve?" Clearly, Su Qing misunderstood her intention. He thought she was planning to make money off him, working off her debt. So Su Qing put on an indifferent air. "I don't have a problem with it. Even if you did, you couldn't solve it." But Jiang He wouldn't let it go. "What's the problem then?" Seeing this, Su Qing decided to tease her. "My problem is, I lack a girlfriend." Who knew that when Jiang He heard this, she actually started to seriously think about it. Seeing her expression, Su Qing thought she was going to agree. But even if she agreed, Su Qing wouldn't dare to make a move. Jiang He thought for a long time, but as she walked along, but suddenly opened her wise eyes. She righteously told Su Qing, "I'm sorry. I really can't help you kidnap innocent women. It's an ironclad rule set by the chief." Su Qing was instantly petrified. Alright, it seems I was overthinking it. Seeing young couples flirting on the street. No wonder Jiang He was confused. Even Su Qing felt a sense of indignation. But what Su Qing admired most about Jiang He was that she wouldn't encounter something she hadn't seen or heard of before, and immediately believe it was fake, refusing to listen to others' suggestions. Instead, she would think, so there are such things. Then she would verify it herself or think it over. Su Qing suddenly spoke up and asked Jiang He, "Isn't your place very open-minded, like that Li Shimin and such?" Jiang He responded blankly, "I've heard some things." Su Qing suddenly became interested, and then, you see, Su Qing's father had researched history his entire life. If what Jiang He said didn't match up at all, then that history would be fake. Then we're in for a good show. But Jiang He asked in confusion, "What then?" "Well, you guys were so open back then. There's no way you haven't seen what was on the street just now, right?" Jiang He was even more confused. What do the emperor and officials visiting brothels have to do with me? What do those emperors and officials visiting brothels have to do with me? Su Qing froze for a moment, then sighed deeply. Yeah. Historical records usually document the deeds of certain ministers, or certain emperors, or perhaps the romantic escapades of some literati. But what does that have to do with an ordinary person like Jiang He, roaming the world with a sword, eating and drinking to one's heart's content? Those are just Su Qing's wishful thinking. He paused, then added, "Tell me about your life in Yanbang sometime. I think it would be quite interesting." Hearing him say this, Jiang He couldn't help but recall the past. Those days filled with constant fighting, fire, and corpses. She lowered her head, her voice slightly somber. "My life isn't as interesting as it is here. You wouldn't like it." Not long after, the two returned home. Su Qing opened the cake box. Jiang He held an 8-shaped object, unsure of what it was. Su Qing then explained, "These are birthday candles. I don't know how old you are, so I asked the shop assistant for 18-year-old ones. Just stick them into the cake, wherever you like." After everything was ready, Su Qing suddenly said he needed to turn off the lights. He said it was about the ritual. A moment later, only the faint glow of the candles remained in the room. Su Qing pressed Jiang He into a chair and said, "Please welcome our birthday girl of the day, heroine Jiang He. Next, it's time to make a wish. Close your eyes in a moment, and think of the one wish you want to come true the most. Whisper it, and after you've made your wish, open your eyes. Blow out the candles in one breath. This is your first birthday wish. It will definitely come true." Jiang He obediently closed her eyes and made a silent wish. Su Qing pretended to be nonchalant and waited by the side. But when Jiang He opened her eyes after making her wish, she found Su Qing leaning in, trying to eavesdrop. They stared at each other, and both blushed immediately. Su Qing quickly stood up and changed the subject. "Are you ready, Su Hao? Then quickly blow out the candles." After Jiang He obediently blew out the candles, Su Qing went to the side and turned on the light. Jiang He seemed to suddenly remember something, and turned to ask Su Qing, "Can I use my phone to, click, and save the cake?" Su Qing immediately understood what she meant. "You want to take a picture, right, Duo?" So Su Qing taught her how to use the phone's camera. After taking the picture, it was time to cut the cake and get ready to eat. Jiang He cut the cake as Su Qing instructed. Then she took a piece and offered it to Su Qing first. Su Qing smiled, "I'll just have this piece. The rest is all yours, eat up." Jiang He looked at the remaining large portion of cake. "Is all this mine?" She gently forked a piece and put it in her mouth. It was still that same delicious, sweet taste. Jiang He instantly smiled with satisfaction. But Su Qing, watching her expression, fell into deep thought. When he first tasted cream as a child, this must be the expression, right? Just don't know when it started, but I started to feel tired of it. Maybe I've eaten too much. Or maybe there's just too much delicious food. It's been a long time since I've felt this satisfied. Simply from eating something delicious, right? Jiang He's existence. It really gave Su Qing endless anticipation. He picked up a cola and handed it to Jiang He. "Cheers." He knew that although it was fortunate for Jiang He to be here, wasn't it the same for him? Life is only a few decades long. To have the experience of picking up someone from the Tang dynasty means I haven't lived in vain. Even if I think about it later, it should be a fun story. They enthusiastically toasted their reunion, a meeting that spanned 1,000 years. Ever since Su Qing learned the purpose of that small cloth strip in the Tang dynasty, he bought Jiang He several sizes of bras. Suddenly remembering it now, Su Qing asked Jiang He if she had thrown away that cloth strip. After all, that thing was very unhealthy. But Jiang He, being from ancient times, couldn't handle Su Qing's questioning. Her face instantly turned as red as a baboon's bottom. It turned out they were celebrating Jiang He's birthday with a cake. Under Su Qing's persistent questioning, Jiang He began to tell stories from her time. Fortunately, Minister Yao worked tirelessly to fight the locust plague and the disaster, preventing a widespread famine, a tragedy where human life is cheaper than a dog's. But a disaster is a disaster. Third Aunt fled from Shandong during that famine. She eventually made her way to Gusu. Second Aunt always said that these are prosperous times and that Lord Yao is a saint. She even has a longevity tablet for Lord Yao in her room. Whether the stronghold is struggling or thriving, she eats half as much as everyone else. The chief often calls her foolish, but Second Aunt just smiles. She said she'd only enjoy half the blessings. The other half she'd share with her great benefactor, so that this prosperous era could last a little longer. Su Qing was a little bewildered. Aren't you members of the Jianghu? Why would you enshrine the longevity tablet of a court official? Aren't the Jianghu and the court usually at odds? Jiang He lowered her head. If it weren't for Lord Yao, Mother couldn't leave the state of Lu. The dead must have so much on their minds. Su Qing was dumbfounded. You're really from the Kaiyuan era? They said it was the prosperous Kaiyuan era. This is it. What would a chaotic world be like then? Jiang He fell silent. Yes, if that was the greatest era of prosperity, what is this place now? At this moment, Su Qing suddenly said, don't think about it. It's all in the past. Hurry up and eat your cake. Jiang He looked at Su Qing, her face slightly flushed. Thank you, Su Qing. I want to save the rest for tomorrow. Is that okay? But if you leave it until tomorrow, it won't taste as good as it does now. Jiang He remained unmoved. It's also delicious. She picked up the card that read, Happy Birthday, Jiang He, muttering to herself. How wonderful. Food can be tossed around and played with. Slender waists and shapely legs are everywhere on the streets. Even intimate gestures between husband and wife can be displayed openly. Second Aunt was wrong. This is what a prosperous age truly looks like. It's a pity she can't see it. Jiang He held the cola and looked up. I must live well. I'll help Second Aunt and the others see this Chiao world. A few days later, Su Qing sat in front of the computer watching a video. Jiang He peeked out from behind him. He stared at Su Qing's back, seemingly having something to say, but it also seemed like he had some unspeakable secret. He didn't know how to begin. Su Qing finally noticed her gaze. He asked her what was wrong. Jiang He blushed and walked over step by step. With his hands behind his back, Su Qing turned his head and saw. It turned out she had used up this thing. She was too embarrassed to ask him. Su Qing immediately took out his phone. You should have told me earlier. I'll order you a box online. After placing the order, Su Qing continued. I'll transfer you a few hundred yuan more. You can buy these things yourself at the supermarket. I'll teach you how to shop there later. Then, Su Qing remembered her cloth strips, and wanted to ask if she had thrown them away. Seeing Jiang Hahong's expression like she was about to cry, Su Qing quickly explained, I was just concerned. Isn't comfort the most important thing? Hearing this, Jiang He also quietly raised a question. That dress, it makes my back a little sore. I'll look it up online and let you know. You can go back and try some others first. Maybe it's the wrong size. Jiang He nodded, and was about to go back to her room, but when she reached the door, she suddenly stopped and asked, This is normal, right? Su Qing, without lifting his head, said, We're both innocent. What's not normal? That's true, Jiang He responded softly. She then opened the door and went inside, but after entering, she leaned against the door, and murmured, We're innocent. Early this morning, Jiang He returned 100 yuan to Su Qing, money she earned playing games. Looking at the payment confirmation on her phone, Jiang He felt a pang of regret so intense it was hard to breathe. That's 100 down, Su Qing thought, speechless. If you're that reluctant, don't rush to pay me back. But I still need to figure something out. Find her something else to do. After a moment of thought, Su Qing asked, By the way, can you cook? Jiang He looked a little confused. I can make porridge, and reheat leftovers. Do you want to learn how to cook? As the saying goes, a special skill can take you far. But Jiang He's martial arts skills were useless in modern times, so Su Qing could only try to unearth Jiang He's talents in other areas. Let's see what she's suited for. Jiang He's face lit up with anticipation when she heard Su Qing say this. Can I really learn to cook? She asked. Staying home all day playing games to make money, it didn't feel real at all. But cooking was different. Being a chef, no matter the time, was a proper skill. Su Qing waved at Jiang He. Of course you can learn. Come with me. I'll teach you how to stir-fry potatoes today. Su Qing led her to the kitchen. I don't use the stove very often, so I need to clean it up a bit before we can use it. I'll first teach you how to clean with dish soap and a steel wool scrubber. Then I'll go buy groceries and oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar. You can try to figure it out yourself while I'm gone. Su Qing knew in her heart, things like cooking, she wasn't actually very good at. She basically only knew how to stir-fry shredded potatoes, and simple dishes like scrambled eggs with tomatoes. But there was no reason a girl shouldn't be able to learn to cook. She would just take it one step at a time. Then, Su Qing went to the supermarket for a big shopping trip. Meanwhile, after some painstaking effort, I finally finished cleaning the entire kitchen. Looking at the sparkling new kitchen, I'm sure I can recreate those delicious dishes I've had recently. Soon, I'll definitely be able to make them. Not long after, Su Qing finally returned with bags of groceries. Jiang He curiously came over and looked them over, finally fixing her gaze on a small bag of potatoes. She asked, "What's this?" Su Qing shook his slightly sore arms and said, "These are called potatoes. Don't let their appearance fool you, they have an incredibly high yield per acre. They can be eaten as both a vegetable and a grain. If the Tang dynasty had these back then, there wouldn't have been any famines." Su Qing then told Jiang He to take the potatoes to the kitchen. Jiang He nodded. I lifted it effortlessly. Quickly, in the kitchen, Su Qing started teaching Jiang He how to shred potatoes. First, you wash the potatoes in the water. Then you peel them with this. When you learn how to cook, you can cook and wash dishes here, and I'll pay you 5 yuan per meal, how about it? Hearing this, Jiang He refused. I'm eating your food and living under your roof. It wouldn't be right to take money for helping out. Besides, I'm eating too, so taking wages is unreasonable. But Su Qing insisted. Then consider it a bonus. Motivation for you. Anyway, eating at home is healthier than eating out. You need to learn quickly, my lady. I believe in you. Jiang He nodded slightly. Although, saying eat at home always sounds a bit strange. Su Qing then found a picture online and showed it to Jiang He. Look here. After peeling, use a knife to cut the potatoes into shreds. Just like in this photo. Just then, Qin Hao suddenly called. Su Qing quickly added. After cutting them, remember to put them in water. I'm going to answer a call, let it soak for a bit. I'll teach you how to make it when I get back. Su Qing then ran to the living room to answer the phone. Qin Hao was calling to invite him out for skewers that night. Su Qing declined directly. I'll have hot pot with you next time. I won't go today, I've already started cooking. Qin Hao was lying bored on the sofa at home, complaining. Who knows when next time will be. Qin Hao suddenly snapped back to reality. Wait, what did you say? You can cook. Su Qing didn't bother to elaborate. Cooking is no big deal. What's so surprising about it? Let me tell you this first, I didn't buy a lot of groceries. Even if you come, you won't get any. Su Qing didn't wait for Qin Hao's reply. He hung up the phone immediately. He knew, if he didn't say that much, that kid Qin Hao would probably come running over. Right now, unless it's absolutely necessary. It's best if Jiang He doesn't appear in front of Qin Hao. Meanwhile, Jiang He was looking up something on her phone with a worried expression. Is this normal? Right now, Su Qing is showing her the kitchen supplies. This is oil, this is salt, soy sauce, MSG, and this is sugar. These are all seasonings. Remember them carefully later. Watch how much seasoning I use. Jiang He listened while thinking about what the computer said. Cooking together can increase intimacy, especially when two people start a family. Jiang He is worried sick right now. Since they eat together, does that mean they have to sleep together tonight? Su Qing has no idea what she's thinking. He's still talking to himself. Did you remember everything? Don't put too much seasoning. Too much MSG will make you stupid. Jiang He responds absent-mindedly. I remember. Seeing her like this, Su Qing asked with concern. You seem a bit strange. What's wrong? Jiang He murmured softly, innocent and blameless. Shortly after, a plate of delicious-looking, stir-fried shredded potatoes was ready. Jiang He looked pleasantly surprised. This smells so good. Su Qing filled a large bowl of rice and handed it to her. Then he sat down himself. From when they started living together, from when he took Jiang He in, this was the first time they had cooked a meal. Jiang He gently picked up some food with her chopsticks and put it in her mouth. She was instantly conquered by the delicious taste. Delicious. Is this potato also grown from the ground? Yes, otherwise, do you think it magically appears? This is steamed potato. It's very fragrant when steamed directly. I like it the most. Su Qing picked up a steamed potato, but quickly tossed it from hand to hand because it was hot. He handed one to Jiang He. You try it too. This thing came from the foreigners. If one day you can go back, you should build a giant ship, and sail southeast, keep going straight, and you'll reach another continent. Conquer it. Then you'll definitely be remembered throughout history. Maybe I'll even read about you in history books. Jiang He didn't respond, but stared blankly at the potatoes in front of him. I'm wondering if I can find a place to cultivate some land. That way, I can settle down here. As long as I have my own piece of land, I can grow my own food and cook for myself. That way, I can find a way out. Su Qing was a little taken aback by her question. Jiang He, however, was immersed in her own fantasy. I know how to farm. Even if I haven't seen these before, I can still learn. I can definitely learn. Su Qing could only helplessly persuade her. I advise you to give up this idea. Farming isn't reliable these days. Jiang He didn't believe him. Why not? I'm strong. As long as I save a little money, I can afford to cultivate the wasteland. Then I'll find a piece of unwanted wasteland to cultivate. That way, in only 3 or 4 years, I'll have my own land. Then I can earn money and pay you back. Su Qing immediately interrupted her. You should first learn how to live here. Think about that kind of thing later. Spending 3 or 4 years cultivating land? No way, absolutely not. Just treat this place like your home. It's no big deal, I can support you. Su Qing's unintentional words, however, made Jiang He blush instantly. Su Qing quickly explained, don't misunderstand. It's purely platonic, like raising a winter melon. After all, Jiang He is a female warrior from over 1,000 years ago, and she's so much fun. If I could, I really wouldn't want to let her go. As for what happens later, I'll deal with it later. I'll figure something out. Jiang He was unaware of Su Qing's ulterior motives. Trembling, she said, young master, please don't joke. I will repay your great kindness in taking me in. But offering myself as a reward won't do. Hearing this, Su Qing was dumbfounded. How can this Xia be so dirty-minded? Jiang He continued. I can't treat this place as my home. I'm just staying temporarily. We're perfectly innocent, Su Qing quickly interrupted. Okay. We're innocent and have a clear conscience. I didn't say I was going to do anything. Do I look like a bad guy? Jiang He hugged Tudo and replied timidly. You're a good person, no, call me young hero. Remember, don't say good person in the future. After the two finished eating, Jiang He started playing games to earn money, but she suddenly discovered something new on the desktop. That was Su Qing's personal space. Jiang He was stunned as soon as she opened the photo album. Holy crap, young hero, is this you? Su Qing leaned in for a look, waving his hands and saying, how could this be me? Jiang He was skeptical, but he looks exactly like you. Su Qing felt a pang of guilt. Although he looks a lot like me, it's really not me. Jiang He moved closer, staring intently at Su Qing. Finally, Su Qing couldn't hold back and admitted, okay, it was me. But you were so weird before, like a crazy person. All I want to say is, if you don't need that other eye, you could totally donate it to someone in need. Su Qing sighed. I filmed these when I was young and naive. They're all dark history. Don't look. I actually use these photos to remind myself not to have any more stupid ideas. But now Jiang He's found them. Luckily, my videos are all in hidden folders. Otherwise I'd definitely be taken for a pervert. Jiang He didn't understand the romance of the 90s generation. She asked Su Qing with some confusion. Did you used to have long hair? Su Qing felt a wave of embarrassment. The buried love family. You wouldn't understand. We were at the forefront of fashion back then. But Su Qing knew very well that if he hadn't looked like a hooligan back then, I wouldn't be constantly harassed by my dad for rent. It's my own house, why should I pay to live in it? It doesn't make any sense. Su Qing paused and then said, here, move over a bit. I'll create a new account for you. You can upload your cake photos there. They should be preserved indefinitely, barring any unforeseen issues. Use your name in pinyin as the password. Watch how I type this. You just have to press it like this once. Next, let's choose a username. I'll pick one for you. Su Qing's fingers flew across the keyboard. He quickly registered a new account for Jiang He. Jiang He leaned in for a closer look. Flying dancing light. Is this my username? Yes, do you like it? It's like using a fake identity when you're out in the world. Everyone does this online. I'll add you to some gaming groups first. You can join in and chat casually. If you run into anyone annoying, just ignore them. If there's anything you don't understand, you can search for the answer online. After the explanation, Su Qing plopped down on the sofa. I let out a long sigh of relief. But then again, at this rate, I wonder if she'll become an internet addict. But in any case, it's better than mining, or going out and playing the chivalrous hero. Su Qing glanced at Jiang He's back. It had already been 2 months since he took her in. Su Qing had long since gotten used to having someone by his side, constantly asking questions. Or she'll stay silent and figure things out on her own. She'll slowly get used to this place, and find a way to live on her own. She'll put down roots and blossom in this era, eventually transforming into a sophisticated city woman. 1,000 years ago, she was just a speck of dust during the Kaiyuan era. In modern times, she's nothing more than a brick in this prosperous age. This is as far as I can help her. Just as Su Qing was lost in thought, Jiang He suddenly stood up and said, I'm going to take a shower now. Shortly after, Jiang He finished showering and got dressed, covering the scars on her body. She knew Su Qing was right. Now everything existed for human enjoyment. Everything within sight, absolutely everything. Unlike before, everything was about survival. But in just 2 months, even Jiang He herself could see how much she had changed since she first arrived. She opened the door and stepped out of the bathroom, only to find Su Qing already waiting there. Su Qing waved at her. Come on, after I finish drying your hair, I need to wash up too. Su Qing believed that as long as he dried Jiang He's hair every time, she wouldn't think about cutting her long, straight, black hair short because it was too much trouble. Su Qing quietly dried her hair. Jiang He suddenly turned her head and told him, why don't you grow your hair long too? As long as it doesn't turn red, then I can blow dry your hair too. Su Qing definitely refused directly, but Jiang He continued, only if you blow dry it for me. That's not good, Su Qing smiled. It's just a small effort. People at the salon do it for others every day. Don't think of it as a bother. Hearing this, Jiang He didn't say anything more than thank you, young hero. Blushing, Jiang He fantasized in her heart. If Su Qing were in my time, with such a kind heart, and such weak skills, he definitely wouldn't survive, right? If that were the case, maybe I could protect him. And then, with a wave of my hand, and told him it was just a small favor. But then again, my own prosperous world, it's better he doesn't go there. Things are pretty good right now, very nice. Living together, the two of them soon reached winter. Early one morning, Su Qing put a cute hat on Jiang He, and told her to stand still while he took pictures. Looking at Jiang He's various outfits on my phone, I keep feeling like I'm playing Nicky up to you. I let out a long sigh and said, look, if you had gone off on your own, wouldn't you be frozen to death by now? Luckily, this hero thought things through. Oh right, can your kung fu protect you from the cold? Jiang He fiddled with the pom-pom on her hat. A little, I guess. I'm definitely more resistant to cold than you are. Su Qing laughed. With those straw sandals of yours, won't your toes freeze off? Seeing her lie exposed, Jiang He got a little angry. Startled, Su Qing ran out the door. Before leaving, he didn't forget to tell her, remember to cook for yourself if you get hungry. There are tomatoes and eggs in the fridge. Don't make any for me. Alright, I'm heading out. Su Qing was going to his parents' house. It was already mid-November, and he hadn't paid his rent yet. He'd considered just transferring the money, but since his dad had lowered the rent last month, he figured it was better to go in person. Otherwise, his parents might suddenly show up. Although I have a clear conscience about taking Jiang He in, I'm still misunderstood by those who don't know the truth. After all, a single man and a single woman living under the same roof. To say there's nothing going on, I'm afraid only someone as foolish as Dong Gua would believe it. Not long after, Su Qing returned home. As soon as he entered, his mother asked, just you? Where's your girlfriend? Su Qing's face was expressionless. She's at her own place. I didn't ask her to come. His mother immediately became unhappy. Why didn't you bring that girl over? Su Qing could only reply helplessly, stop glaring at me. It's just a girlfriend. Why should I bring her here? To eat your food, and then have my dad yell at me again? Isn't it a bit much for you two youngsters to be living together like this? What's the girl's background? Don't tell me you just picked her up somewhere. Su Qing had already prepared a story for this. She came out of the mountains alone, to work in this bustling and unfamiliar city. She's all alone and helpless. So I just help her out sometimes. I looked after her like a little sister. One thing led to another, and we hit it off. When I first met her, her shoes were worn out, but she couldn't bear to replace them. Her clothes were patched, she was so pitiful, she couldn't even get enough to eat. Well, kids from poor families grow up fast. She's definitely different from modern, girls nowadays who have no lack of food and drink. Su Qing was eating an orange and talking nonsense. My mother suddenly asked, so what are your plans, living together like this? Su Qing blurted out, what do you mean, plans? We're not sleeping together. She's sleeping in the utility room. We're completely innocent, our consciences are clear. My mother didn't bother listening to his nonsense and stood up, saying, bring her over next time. If it's not going to work out, you two should break up soon. 7 o'clock tonight. Dad's back. As soon as he came in and saw Su Qing, he asked, here to pay the rent? Su Qing looked innocent, no. I just came over for dinner. Before Dad could say anything, Mom called out, telling him to hurry up and wash his hands for dinner. I have to say, Mom's ribs are always the best. Su Qing couldn't help but think, it would be nice if I brought Jiang He here to try this. That guy has probably already finished eating, and is diligently working overtime playing games. Someone asked, what are you smirking about? Su Qing was taken aback. Huh, was I smiling? After finishing the meal, Su Qing was helping his mom wash the dishes. But suddenly I saw some green plants growing on the side. Mom, is this ginger? Yes, I heard it's good for your health. So I planted some. Su Qing looked at the ginger sprouts, lost in thought. As if possessed, he reached out to touch them. But his mom slapped his hand away. What are you doing? Su Qing clutched his stinging hand and explained, give me some. I'll take some home and plant it myself. Finally, Su Qing got his wish, and received half a sprouted ginger root. Holding the ginger sprout, Su Qing chuckled foolishly again. Jiang He, a ginger sprout, she'll definitely be interested in growing this. I'll give it to her when I get back. Su Qing could hardly wait to see her expression. Just then, my mother said, let me wash the rest. It's so late. You should go back soon. But at this moment, Su Qing's mind was filled with the image and laughter of Jiang He. He slowly replied, Mom, I think I'm in love. Mom was speechless for a moment. You two are already living together. What do you mean, I think? On the way back, Su Qing felt a strange heaviness in his heart. He slowly raised his head and looked at the night sky. Did I actually fall for a girl from over 1,000 years ago? Or am I just feeling horny? Oh, no, not horny. I wouldn't dare. Before, even though I joked about her being my girlfriend and stuff, I was just joking around, teasing her. Besides, she's just staying here temporarily. Making her my girlfriend directly just doesn't seem right. Everyone else has a normal girlfriend, but my girlfriend is obsessed with stuff from over 1,000 years ago. It feels so weird. How to make liquid soap was a search from a Tang Dynasty girl. What made Su Qing speechless was that Jiang He was actually trying to ensure her future son would starve. After returning from his parents' house, Su Qing had just stepped inside, when he noticed something was off with Jiang He. She turned sideways, blocking the computer screen. The expression on her face was clearly flustered. Su Qing didn't say anything. Instead, she gave the ginger sprouts her mother had given her to Jiang He. Jiang He silently accepted them. After examining them carefully, she asked, what is this? Su Qing took off her coat. It's ginger. Ginger sprouts. Find a place to put them. Just keep it like this. It's quite good, suits you. Hearing this, Jiang He immediately carried Jiang Miao and ran to the kitchen. Put it down carefully. Su Qing suddenly asked Jiang He to come over. The two sat on the sofa. Jiang He seemed a little uneasy. She weakly asked Su Qing, do you have something to say? Su Qing was silent for a moment, then suddenly extended his hand and said, let me touch your hand. Jiang He immediately refused. No way, I won't give it to you. Su Qing quickly explained, I just want to see if your hands are cold. Jiang He thought for a moment, then extended her hand. My hands aren't cold, touch them if you don't believe me. Su Qing took her hand and held it up for closer inspection. These hands of yours that wield a sword every day, it feels different. Jiang He's face instantly flushed red. Her voice trembled slightly as she asked, WH. What are you doing? Su Qing turned her hand over and over, examining it. I'm just seeing if hands that practice martial arts look rough. If they don't, I might practice too. But what he was actually thinking was, her hands must be cold using the computer in winter. I'll order her a hand warmer later. Jiang He's heart was pounding. She clenched her teeth. Finally, unable to contain her shyness, she dropped her bag and stammered, I'm going to take a shower, before running off. Su Qing listened to the sound of the running water. He looked thoughtfully at the bathroom door. He immediately rushed to the computer. He knew that when he entered the door just now, Jiang He's behavior was definitely suspicious. With a few clicks, Su Qing pulled up Jiang He's search history. Jiang He was quite the search whiz, having searched for a bunch of bizarre things. He really didn't know what was going on in her head. Soon after, Jiang He finished her shower and came out. Su Qing looked at her silently and deeply. Then he slowly stood up and said, come here, I'll dry your hair. Jiang He was momentarily stunned. Why is this guy's look so strange? No, a lot of things have been off tonight. Su Qing fiddled with the hairdryer as he told Jiang He, that online search isn't all powerful. It's just other people answering your questions through the internet. Anyone can make mistakes. So you can't believe everything you find online. And some malicious people will even use it to cheat people out of their money or even harm them. Remember, never completely trust it. Jiang He nodded. Su Qing then started drying her hair with a hairdryer. Jiang He thought for a moment while having her hair dried and suddenly asked, why did you suddenly bring that up just now? Su Qing certainly didn't dare to say he saw her search history, so he could only say that it suddenly came to his mind. At night, Su Qing lay alone in his bed, his mind racing with thoughts. At this rate, Jiang He's integration into modern society is just around the corner. Then what should I do? Trick her into becoming my girlfriend? or let her go and become someone else's wife. Thinking of this, Su Qing slapped himself in the face. No way, I absolutely won't allow it. I really need to find a way to trick this little girl into becoming my girlfriend. The next morning, Jiang He was brushing her teeth, but she felt uneasy. Finally, she couldn't help but ask Su Qing, who was next to her, "What are you doing?" Su Qing just leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "I'm not doing anything. You brush your teeth." But at this moment, Su Qing was thinking, this Mei is more and more pleasing to the eye. This nose, these eyes, how can they be so beautiful? He suddenly said, "Oh right. Come with me to my parents' place when you're free." Seeing Jiang He's confused expression, Su Qing explained, "My dad came last month, right? And he's been wondering why we're living together. So just pretend to be my girlfriend. Come over for a meal, so they don't cry." Jiang He looked suspicious. "That girlfriend? I heard you're supposed to sleep together." "No, you don't have to do anything. You just have to eat." "Of course. If you want to sleep together, it's not impossible." Jiang He responded without hesitation, "I don't want to." "Then just have a meal. You don't have to do anything else. Just pretend. It's not real anyway." Jiang He lowered her head. "Okay then. I'll pretend to be your girlfriend." Hearing Jiang He agree, Su Qing immediately became enthusiastic. "Let's practice then." Jiang He was speechless. "Isn't it just a meal? Practice what?" Su Qing was momentarily at a loss for words. Practice eating. How about we go out for a buffet at noon? It's the one I told you about last time. The one where I can eat as much as I want." Jiang He's mouth was watering. Su Qing smiled slightly. "Yes, hot pot. Eat until you can't eat anymore." He wanted to trick Jiang He into becoming his girlfriend. The first step was to have her pretend to be his girlfriend and go home for dinner. After all, if they pretend long enough, it'll eventually become real. The two were just about to head out to practice eating. To eat the buffet Jiang He had been craving. Su Qing watched Jiang He, who kept blowing on her hands, and asked, "Are you cold?" Jiang He suddenly brightened. "No, I'm not cold. These clothes are very warm and comfortable." Hearing this, if you were to suddenly go back one day, at least you won't have lost out by taking these cotton clothes back with you. Why don't you just carry a potato in your pocket? Jiang He was stunned for a moment. "Then can I earn money to buy a computer and carry it with me every day?" "You could, but I wouldn't recommend it. Taking just a computer back wouldn't be very useful, unless you download a bunch of information. It's still more cost-effective to plant potatoes." Jiang He touched his pocket, waiting to come back after finishing his meal. "I'll just search how to plant potatoes. Although everything here is great, there's no place like home." The two walked along, and suddenly saw an elderly woman struggling to drag a bag of rice. Su Qing hurried forward. "Auntie Cheng, why did you buy such a big bag of rice?" "Where's Uncle Wang?" Cheng gasped. He had a high blood pressure episode. "Are you free now? Help me carry this upstairs." Su Qing smiled. "Of course. Here, Jiang He, put it on my shoulder," Su Qing said with a smile as he measured the rice. "I'm just about to take my girlfriend out to dinner. It's a good thing I ran into you," Aunt Cheng said matter-of-factly. "Last time you said she wasn't, now you admit it. What's this girl's name again?" "Jiang He." Jiang like in ginger, he like in seedling. A moment later, Su Qing placed the rice in front of Aunt Cheng's door. Then he scratched his head and asked, feigning confusion, "Aunt, you should have met Jiang He before, right?" Aunt Cheng paused. "Met her? I don't recall." As she spoke, Aunt Cheng told her husband to open the door. Su Qing gestured, taking the opportunity. "You really don't remember? When I just started college. It's been 4 or 5 years. She wasn't this tall back then. She had a round face. You even talked to her." Aunt Cheng was even more confused. Su Qing didn't give her a chance to react. "Oh, I guess she's changed so much, you can't remember. The one with the round face. That's her, okay. This old woman has a terrible memory. Would you like to come in for a glass of water?" Su Qing, seeing his goal achieved, declined. "I still need to take my girlfriend to dinner. She's always at home and hasn't been out much. It's a rare outing, you know." After saying that, the two of them left on their own. On the way, Jiang He curiously asked Su Qing, "Did I come here 4 or 5 years ago?" "Like hell you did. Back then, you were probably freezing your butt off in some remote mountain valley. I was just saying that. It's good if you have an impression. It doesn't matter if you don't. I was just saying it casually. If no one recognizes you besides me, then you don't exist, you know. You don't exist in a societal sense. No one knows your past. And of course, you have no future. The past is like roots. Your roots are in the Tang dynasty. That won't do. You need to grow some roots here. Only then can you truly live." That Mrs. Cheng is a real gossip. She loves to spread rumors whether they're true or not. If she gossips about me, It'll leave an impression on others. Then everyone will know I exist. If someone then mentions they've seen me before, that's even better. It's called collective consciousness. Jiang He listened. After a moment of silent thought, I murmured, I think I understand what you mean. Soon, the two of them reached the main gate. Uncle Zhao, the security guard, was sitting there spacing out. Su Qin went up and greeted him. Uncle Zhao, are you cold? Why don't you stay inside the security room? Uncle Zhao smiled. It gets a bit stuffy after staying inside for too long. I'll come out for some air, sit for a bit, then go back in. Please, have a seat. I'm going out to dinner with my girlfriend. I'll get going then. As he spoke, Su Qin suddenly reached out, wanting to hold Jiang He's hand, but he only grasped the sleeve of her padded jacket. The two of them walked out the door like this. Su Qin fumbled with his fingers. Where's her hand? What a loss, what a loss. Seeing it was not to be, then he smiled and said to Jiang He, this is called seeking attention. Jiang He didn't understand what Su Qin meant. She thought he was talking about holding her sleeve. Is that it? Then hold it. Jiang He offered her sleeve. Su Qin was speechless. No need, no one's watching anymore. However, in his heart, he was thinking, I don't even have hands. How can I hold it? It's pointless. It seems the task of getting a girlfriend is a long and arduous one. One day, Su Qin was taking Jiang He to an all-you-can-eat hot pot restaurant, but just as they were approaching the restaurant, he bumped into the person he least wanted to see at that moment. Looking at this familiar face, Su Qin couldn't help but complain inwardly, what is this guy doing here? Just then, Qin Hao also saw Su Qin and his companion. Su Qin could only offer a wry smile and greet him. After all, turning around and leaving now would definitely make Qin Hao suspicious. Qin Hao hurried over to them. Where are you two going? With his professional instincts, Qin Hao had a feeling something was off with Su Qin. Su Qin pointed to the side. We're going for hot pot, want to join us? Qin Hao immediately refused, I'm on duty. But his eyes were fixed on Jiang He. Is this your cousin? In high school? Then, tell me about the law of cosines. Jiang He was completely dumbfounded. What fish, what string? What is this guy talking about? Su Qin quickly stepped in front of Jiang He. Okay, that's enough. She's my girlfriend. Qin Hao still felt something was wrong. This kid is definitely up to something. Having a girlfriend is no big deal, but he insisted on saying she was his cousin from high school. So there's only one truth, you're hiding something from me. Su Qin dropped the act, putting on a roguelike demeanor as he approached. Fine, fine, fine. I've got things to do. You're Sherlock Holmes, aren't you? Why don't you arrest me and take me in for questioning now? Qin Hao sighed, resigned. I'll let you off the hook today, but if you don't explain this to me clearly another day, I'll tell your dad. Su Qin couldn't be bothered with him. She gave him a hand gesture as she left. Then she said to Jiang He, ignore him. Let's go eat hot pot. A moment later, the two arrived at the all-you-can-eat hot pot restaurant. Su Qin chose a window seat and gestured for Jiang He to sit down. Jiang He seemed a little distracted. Without any of the usual excitement for an all-you-can-eat meal, she timidly looked up and asked Su Qin, should I not have come out? Su Qin comforted her nonchalantly. There's no should or shouldn't. Do you want to just stay cooped up at home forever? If you stay at home, I bet you won't learn anything in a year. You still need to come out and experience things. You need to blend into life here. Jiang He was still a little apprehensive. She pointed outside again, and Su Qin glanced over. It's okay, don't worry about them. You haven't done anything wrong. They can't arrest you, can they? As long as you don't reveal your true identity, just say you're a wanderer. They also have to help you find your family. Hearing this, Jiang He, with her excellent memory, was stunned. She looked at Su Qin suspiciously. That's not what you said before. Su Qin brushed her off casually. Come on, he said, pulling Jiang He along, let's go get some food. In no time, the table was filled with all kinds of meat and vegetables. Jiang He put her hands together and murmured a prayer. Thank you, kind boss. Su Qin was speechless for a moment. Don't thank me. Hurry up and take off your hat and coat. Then, Su Qin swirled the meat in the broth and asked Jiang He, by the way, do you have hot pot where you come from? Jiang He stared intently at the meat in his hand, drool almost dripping down her chin. We have something similar, but I've never tried it. I remember it too. There's a poem about it, I think. Green ants in new fermented wine, a small red clay stove. Evening comes, and snow is about to fall. Could you drink a cup with me? I think that's how it goes. But this little girl is enjoying it way too much, isn't she? Su Qin handed the peeled shrimp to Jiang He. Here, have some more of this. Jiang He obediently reached out and took it. Thank you, young hero. Jiang He then ate one after another, enjoying it immensely. Suddenly, Jiang He looked up at Su Qin. Aren't you eating? Su Qing was taken aback. He realized he had been inadvertently captivated. It's all because this little girl is too beautiful. Su Qing thought for a moment and explained with a smile, I'm full. Look, you eat the shrimp, I'll peel them for you. Isn't this faster? Friends are supposed to help each other out. Jiang He believed it, thinking, so that's how it is. She made another mental note. A buffet means friends helping each other. Soon, the table was piled with empty plates. Su Qing looked at Jiang He, who was holding her stomach. Are you full? I'm a little full, that's perfect. Let's walk back and digest our food. Su Qing puts on his coat. He helps Jiang He put on her hat. Okay, this is good. They walk out of the hot pot restaurant. Su Qing looks at the passing crowd. He then looks at the surveillance camera overhead. He seems to be thinking about something. Su Qing turned to Jiang He and said, let's take this road back. We can stroll around a bit too. That day, after Su Qing and Jiang He finished eating hot pot, they came to a riverside to take a walk. Suddenly inspired, Su Qing asked, can you walk on water? There used to be someone here who could float across on a single reed leaf. Jiang He was dumbfounded. Are modern people this strange? Though I really can't do it either. Then can you split this rock open with your hand? Jiang He looked at Su Qing like he was an idiot. How can human flesh and blood be harder than rock? Hearing this, Su Qing looked around. Seeing no one around, he pulled Jiang He aside quickly, and then, he pointed at a tree, and asked Jiang He if he could break it. Jiang He didn't waste any words, he immediately charged up, then slammed his fist into the tree trunk. There was a cracking sound, and the tree, as thick as a bowl, snapped in two. Su Qing was stunned, but the next second, he pointed at Jiang He and yelled, you're destroying public property. Run! He grabbed Jiang He's small hand, and soon, they had run a long way. Su Qing was panting heavily. Jiang He calmly asked, can you let go of my hand now? Su Qing's expression was unreadable. After murmuring, oh, I let go of her hand. Then I lowered my head and walked forward. Let's go back and play games. The next day, Su Qing was sitting on the sofa, lost in thought. Jiang He, who was playing a game, suddenly asked, what does Qing Yuan mean? Su Qing was about to explain, Qing Yuan. It means. Wait, what connection? Su Qing excitedly stood up. Jiang He watched him standing directly on the sofa. The atmosphere suddenly became a little awkward, but Su Qing didn't care. He jumped directly off the sofa, and rushed over to Jiang He's side. Jiang He pointed at the computer, this is the person who said it. Su Qing immediately pressed F2 to talk to him. F2, save proof. Hey, man, wanna be my online girlfriend? The next second, Jiang He was kicked out of the team. Seeing this, Su Qing breathed a sigh of relief and said, you should go cook. I'll play for a bit. Hearing this, Jiang He could only tie up her hair and prepare to cook. After she left, Su Qing immediately added that person to his kill list. I haven't even made a move yet. Someone's already eyeing his little seedlings. Having eliminated the potential crisis, Su Qing relaxed and hummed a tune. But not long after, there was a sudden knock at the door. Su Qing opened the door and found it was his father. It's not time to collect the rent yet, Dad. Old Su stepped directly into the house. Did I say anything about collecting rent? I was just passing by after work. Just checking if your heating is working. If there's a problem, as your landlord, I'll help you. He stopped mid-sentence. Lao Su suddenly froze. Jiang He came out of the kitchen carrying a plate of freshly cooked food. Uncle, hello. Lao Su was dumbfounded. What's going on? This isn't how it's supposed to go. Originally, after he got off work, I thought I'd stop by and straighten Su Qing out. I figured, he'd be out gallivanting with Jiang He, spending every last penny, and when the money ran out, he'd have to go back to work. But now, I look around. The kitchen, the bathroom, everything's spotless. Even the shoes on the rack are neatly arranged. I'm honestly shocked. Last time I was here, this place was like a doghouse. How did it suddenly become like this? Damn, this is a proper home now. Old Su could only reply to Jiang He, hi. I'm just checking if the heating is working. If it's not hot, I'll call the property management, Su Qing said, his face full of impatience. The heating is very warm, you don't have to worry. Hearing this, Old Su could only leave, then I'll go back. Otherwise, your mom will have to work again. As he was leaving, Old Su suddenly turned around and pointed at Su Qing. You come over here another day. Su Qing sighed helplessly. Seeing this, Jiang He went back to the kitchen. I'll go back to stir-frying. Su Qing simply didn't leave either. He just leaned against the door frame and watched Jiang He cook. This posture, this look, a perfect wife and mother. Su Qing's face was filled with infatuation. This feeling. No regrets. One day at dinner, Su Qing asked Jiang He if she had thought about the future. Jiang He was stunned for a moment, then lowered her head. The future. I guess it will be like this. Su Qing thought she meant like this with him. So I said with a chuckle, that's great, let's keep it this way forever. Jiang He then explained, no, I mean I won't always trouble you. We're not related, and you've already helped me so much. It's a huge favor. How dare I ask for too much? Besides, second aunt said, no one owes us anything. If someone helps, it's out of kindness. But you can't push your luck. Su Qing quickly adjusted his direction. Can't we be more than just strangers? I'm unmarried, you're unmarried, our meeting is fate. Jiang He didn't even think, no, you're my benefactor. I can't do that. I have to repay you for everything. Su Qing was completely dumbfounded. This benefactor was like a giant rock that slammed heavily onto his heart. Originally, according to Su Qing's own fantasy, Jiang He should have said something like, this little woman has nothing to offer, except myself. Then he would seriously tell her, I don't ask for you to give yourself to me. And then the two would gaze at each other affectionately. From then on, only having each other in their worlds. Su Qing felt a pang in his heart. Shouldn't it have gone this way? Isn't Haruhi Suzumiya offering herself as repayment for a favor? No, second aunt said. If someone does you a favor, you should repay them, but offering yourself is the most shameless way. If you can't repay them, you just latch onto them. Hearing this, Su Qing just wanted to say to second aunt, what's wrong with you? Oh my god, the failed courtship filled Su Qing with anger. He dejectedly asked Jiang He, can I not be your benefactor anymore? Jiang He, clueless about his feelings, replied, a benefactor is a benefactor. You don't have to pity me. I will work hard to earn money and repay your kindness soon. I won't be a burden to you. Su Qing didn't expect this. My benefactor has become the biggest obstacle to me making Jiang He my wife. But at this rate of earning money by power leveling, I won't be able to pay him back even after 1,000,000 years. I really want to transform into a big bad wolf and make Jiang He mine. But when I think of Jiang He's terrifying fighting prowess, I'm afraid my neck will be snapped like that tree last time. The mere thought sent shivers down Su Qing's spine. Trembling uncontrollably, Su Qing felt irritated. He tossed the winter melon aside. The winter melon immediately crawled onto Jiang He's lap. Jiang He affectionately rubbed the winter melon's head. This made Su Qing feel jealous. Time flew by, and it was early December. Su Qing went out to dinner with Qin Hao and Wang Zijuan. Qin Hao immediately asked Su Qing about the girlfriend from last time. Su Qing calmly replied, she's all alone here. I felt bad for her, so I took her home as my girlfriend. Hearing this, Wang Zijuan, who was next to them, spat out his drink. Damn, is that even normal? Totally normal. Boyfriends and girlfriends are consensual. Bullshit, you said before she was your cousin. Su Qing could only tell part of the truth. I'm helping her hide her identity. She was homeless before, she didn't even have a home. Let alone an ID or anything, everything that could be checked has been checked. She's even been in a shelter. You should know what shelters are like. If her identity isn't hidden, she'll be sent to the shelter again, and I'll have to bring her back. Do you think I'm that kind of person? Looking at me like that really hurts my feelings. Qin Hao helplessly said, fine, I'll trust you for now. Su Qing took the opportunity to bring up the barbecue from last time. Think of a way to see if you can get my sister-in-law's identity issue resolved. The three of us had a good time drinking and chatting. Qin Hao went home first. Su Qing got a ride from Wang Zijuan. On the way, Su Qing asked Wang Zijuan, at your family's shops, are there any jobs that don't require an ID? Wang Zijuan assumed he was looking for a job for his girlfriend. That's easy. I can just put in a word. Oh, wait, it's not. It might be useful in the future. If my girlfriend needs to get any documents or something, it's not good for her to be undocumented forever. It's easier if she has some verifiable history. Wang Zijuan agreed immediately, meaning, she worked at my shop 2 years ago, right? I'll look into it and see what I can do. Leave it to me. After Su Qing finished his meal and returned that day, he opened the door and saw Jiang He sitting in front of the computer. He asked Jiang He, I'm back. Have you eaten? Jiang He turned to look at him. I've eaten. I also saved some for you. It's in the kitchen. Su Qing plopped down on the sofa smugly. You've even learned to save me some food now. Overjoyed, I'll eat it later when I'm hungry. Su Qing even started teasing Dong Guo. Have you gained weight again recently? Seeing his silly look, Jiang He moved closer and sniffed him. Then, she surprisingly demanded, you went drinking again, and you even went to a brothel. Su Qing was stunned and quickly sniffed himself. Why are you saying that? Jiang He looked disgusted. You clearly have a fragrance on you. Su Qing's heart skipped a beat. Fragrance? I must have picked it up in Wang Zijuan's car. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I never go to those kinds of places. I never do anything illegal. What are you thinking about in that little head of yours? There are no brothels anymore, they're illegal. You'd get arrested. Selling yourself is also illegal, so you don't have to worry about me running out of money, and selling you. Jiang He was stunned. This world has so many rules. Of course, if there were no restrictions, selling livers and kidneys could become legal transactions. Don't let the current peace and prosperity fool you. Then there would truly be peace everywhere. Where there is light, there is darkness. There will always be bad people. These words completely frightened Jiang He. This is too terrifying. Fortunately, the young hero didn't dig out his own liver to sell. Seeing her expression, Su Qing paused for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Have you noticed you've been very relaxed lately? Well, that's a good thing. You still need to maintain the necessary vigilance. Jiang He was still immersed in her terrifying self-made dumplings fantasy. Su Qing was speechless for a moment. What is this girl thinking about? Forget it, I'll ignore her. Su Qing got up, preparing to check out the food Jiang He had left for him. Su Qing walked into the kitchen. This food looks pretty good. It's just, there's a bit too much plastic wrap. Su Qing couldn't help but smile. It's nice to have someone save food for me at home. It's so good, I have to eat some even if I'm not hungry. Otherwise, what if she doesn't save any for me next time? After finishing her meal, Su Qing returned to the living room and sat down on the sofa. Looking at Jiang He's back with my head tilted. The more I look, the more I want to hug this cute little seedling. I wonder what it would feel like to hold her in my arms. Su Qing thought for a moment, then suddenly asked, what did you think of my dad when you saw him last time? Jiang He turned her head, confused. I don't know. Su Qing put on a distressed expression. He's just an old stick in the mud. Always has a stern face. Sometimes I envy other people's fathers. Being able to eat and walk together harmoniously, ever since I was little. He's never hugged me, not even once. I often think, if only he could give me a hug. But it's never happened. I know it's too much to ask. So, could you hug me? Let me experience what it feels like. He probably believes his own act. Jiang He looked at him seriously. How did this suddenly involve me? Seeing Jiang He didn't speak, Su Qing continued. Forget it, forget it. After all, you're not him. Although I just wanted to know what a hug feels like. But, never mind. Jiang He listened blankly, then suddenly turned around and lowered her head. Lost in thought, her fingers unconsciously tightened on her pants. A moment later, Jiang He suddenly stood up and walked over to Su Qing. This small matter. I'll help you. Blushing, she extended her hands towards Su Qing. Like this? Su Qing looked up and saw her offering herself to him like this. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. Holding her tightly, he whispered, little thing, I don't believe I can't trick you. Jiang He was startled by his actions, and instinctively wanted to push him away, but she held back. Her fingers gripped his clothes tightly. Both their hearts were pounding. The atmosphere suddenly became intimate. A moment later, Jiang He whispered, is it okay now? Su Qing was reluctant to let her go. Wait a little longer. Just a little longer. Jiang He couldn't help but tremble slightly, but she consoled herself in her heart. I'm just letting young master experience the feeling of a hug. I have a clear conscience, a clear conscience. Su Qing wore a smug grin on his face. This girl felt so warm in his arms. A faint scent of shampoo lingered in her hair. If he wasn't afraid of scaring her, Su Qing would have held her even tighter. After a moment, he reluctantly let go of Jiang He. Scratching his head, he feigned embarrassment as he said, I understand the feeling now. Thank you, my lady. Jiang He panicked and fumbled. Blushing, she waved her hands repeatedly. No need to thank me. It was nothing. Su Qing stood up, and told her he was going to take a shower. After Su Qing left, Jiang He, who had been tricked and even helped count the money, actually thought to herself, so, young master doesn't always have it as easy as he appears. Early this morning, Jiang He was practicing her sword as usual. Her moves were quite impressive. After all, she's skilled enough to jump from the 4th floor. Su Qing was secretly filming her. Just as Jiang He finished her set of martial arts, they greeted each other. Su Qing asked Jiang He, does this kung fu improve your health? How does it make you stronger? Jiang He was stunned. It's just strong. Look, I'm much stronger than you. With this punch, I'm afraid Su Qing will be crying for a long time, right? Then Su Qing searched online, and found that practicing martial arts can actually strengthen the waist and kidneys. This was a big deal, and Su Qing was immediately tempted. He thudded to his knees in front of Jiang He and said, I want to learn kung fu. Jiang He was stunned by what he did. Su Qing quickly explained, I think kung fu, it's traditional culture. It would be a shame for it to be lost. I must study hard and train diligently. I strive to become a master. Su Qing immediately got into a horse stance. Is this stance right? Jiang He nodded blankly, but only 10 minutes later, Su Qing couldn't stand it anymore. Kung Fu is a good thing, but some people just don't work hard. Jiang He munched on an apple nearby. Don't stop, stand up and continue. Keep your hands up. In martial arts, you should always practice. Kung Fu is honed bit by bit. If you want to become a master. Su Qing interrupted Jiang He. No, I don't want to. I just want to strengthen my body. Then you just need to keep at it. When you can stand for half an hour, I'll teach you how to fight. So after I learn this, can I go shirtless boxing in the snow? Hearing Su Qing's question, Jiang He was completely dumbfounded. Why would you go to the snow shirtless? Wouldn't you be cold? Time flew by. This day, the first snow of winter fell in Jiangcheng. It was also the day Su Qing seriously began his martial arts training. The two went out together that day, preparing to have dinner at Su Qing's parents' house. This is Jiang He's first time stepping on snow, and she's happily sliding around. She was so indifferent just now, but now she's getting more and more lively. Su Qing asks Jiang He, is it fun? Jiang He pushes off with her little foot and slides a long way. Then she turns her head and replies with a smile. Fun, it's really fun, haha. Su Qing went up and grabbed her hand. Alright, we can play later. The taxi driver is waiting for us up ahead. A moment later, the two were sitting in the taxi. Jiang He looked at the driver. This driver's job looks so easy. He doesn't have to stand outside in the cold, and he doesn't have to pull the cart himself. He just sits and turns the steering wheel. She whispered to Su Qing, can I do this? Su Qing explained to her. Driving requires learning a lot of things. Just me teaching you isn't enough. It would be even more troublesome if you hit someone. At least right now, I can't let you learn this. Oh, I see. Then why don't you have a car if you know how to drive? Because I'm poor. Soon, they both got out of the car. Su Qing told Jiang He, when you see my parents later, don't be too nervous. We're just here for a simple dinner and chat. Just say you came from a small village in Jicheng to work. Got it? Jiang He nodded quickly. They walked into the residential complex. Su Qing suddenly saw a figure. He excitedly called out, Uncle Qing. While pretending to be flustered and asking Jiang He to hold his hand, little Jiang He obediently held onto his sleeve. Then, in her heart, she repeated, it's just pretend. Qing and I are innocent and have a clear conscience. Uncle Qing turned his head to look at the two of them. What are you doing here today, kid? Hey, I brought my girlfriend back to meet my mom. Then Su Qing introduced Uncle Qing to Jiang He. Qing, how's dad? Jiang He quickly greeted him. When did you start raising a dog? Yeah, 2 months ago. His name is Xiongba. As he spoke, Uncle Qing suddenly beckoned Su Qing, gesturing him over. Xiao Qingzi, could you teach Qing how a thing or two? Look, he hasn't even been in a relationship yet. Su Qing smiled to himself. Isn't this my chance? Uncle, Hao Zi is just too honest. I think you should arrange a blind date for him. That's the only way. You're right. Su Qing beamed. Gotta push things forward to achieve the goal. Well, you think it over. I'll go now. Okay, you go ahead. As Su Qing left, his face was full of self-confidence. Helping my good buddy with this major life event. It's my duty. That day, Su Qing took Jiang He to his parents' house for dinner. Before going upstairs, Su Qing told Jiang He, as the old saying goes, once the play starts, even if no one is listening, I must finish singing it. Understand? Jiang He shook her head, confused. Su Qing took her hand and said, this means, whether we're holding hands or whatever, it's normal between a boyfriend and girlfriend. Don't keep looking at my hand uncomfortably, and don't be nervous later. If my mom asks you something and you don't know how to answer, just give her a vague response. Do you know how to give a vague response? Jiang He looked bewildered. It seems like she has absolutely no idea. Since that's the case, Su Qing's Bluffing 101 class has to commence. For example, if she asks you, aren't you local? Just saying or nodding is a sign of low emotional intelligence. A high EQ response would be to say, right, I'm from out of town, not a local. You should go along with what she says. Affirm first, then negate. Jiang He was dumbfounded. Is there really a difference? There's a huge difference. If you just say or nod, she's definitely not satisfied, but if you reply to her a couple more times, it will show you're sincere. Next question. If she asks what you're doing, what should you say? Of course, if you tell her you're playing games, that's definitely not okay. You can say, you're taking care of some things. Jiang He was completely confused. Taking care of some things. Right, if she keeps asking what it is, just tell her those things Zibao did. Did you learn them? Jiang He looked like she had given up resisting. I probably might have learned the wrong things. Anyway, just play it by ear. I'm here, you just be a good girlfriend. A moment later, the two of them entered the house. Mom hurried out to greet them. Su Qing introduced her directly. This is my girlfriend, Jiang He. I brought her here for you to meet. This is my mom. You can call her Auntie. Jiang He said obediently, lowering her head. Hello, Auntie. Mom instantly beamed. Hello, hello. You're welcome. Dinner's not ready yet. You guys go in and have a seat. So Su Qing took Jiang He's hand and led her towards the living room. Before that, he helped Jiang He take off her hat and coat. As soon as Lao Su came out, he saw this intimate scene between the two. Su Qing turned her head and smiled. Dad, look, I brought her here for you guys to meet today. This is Jiang He. You've met before. Old Su adjusted his glasses and gave a dull, aha. These two really look like a couple. Even their sweaters are matching. While Jiang He was hanging up clothes, Su Qing turned to his dad and grinned mischievously. Old Su was bewildered by his expression. What are you so happy about? I'm happy. I have a girlfriend. Actually, Su Qing thought, the old man has studied history his whole life, and now there's a person from over 1,000 years ago standing right in front of him, but he can't recognize her, and this girl is his girlfriend. This feeling, it's simply awesome. A moment later, the three of them sat on the sofa watching TV. Su Qing picked up an orange and started peeling it. After peeling it, he handed it to Jiang He and said, just make yourself at home. Here, have a tangerine. It's very sweet. At this point, Su Qing suddenly remembered something. He turned to look at Lao Duo. I forgot to bring some fruit or something. It's Jiang He's first time here, after all. Old Su didn't bother to say more. I don't need your little bit. Just then, his mother called from the kitchen. Dinner's ready, Qingzi, come and serve the rice. Su Qing led Jiang He to the bathroom. Go wash your hands. I'll go help my mom serve the food. After Jiang He finished washing her hands and came out of the bathroom, Su Qing had already dished up the food. His mom quickly urged Jiang He to come and sit down. Jiang He felt inexplicably touched. She responded and hurried towards the dining table. As soon as she sat down, Su Qing handed her a bowl of rice and chopsticks. Looking at the scene before her, Jiang He suddenly felt a little panicked. Isn't eating a meal just eating a meal? This isn't quite what I imagined. Seeing her frozen, Su Qing picked up a rib and put it in her bowl. Here, try my mom's ribs. They're super delicious. Mom, watching their interaction, nudged Su's dad. Look at these two, they're such a good match. But it wasn't long before the old couple were stuffed. Jiang He was already on her second bowl. He eats like two men. After dinner, Su Qing was doing the dishes. His father came over and told him to come to his study after he finished. Meanwhile, Jiang He was nervously trying to deal with Su Qing's mother. His mother patted the sofa, and gestured for Jiang He to sit down, telling her not to be so nervous. Come, sit here with me. Then, his mother pretended to complain about Su Qing. This kid, honestly, he has a girlfriend and he's keeping it a secret. By the way, are you two living together now? Jiang He blushed and thought for a moment. They were indeed living together. Since it wasn't wrong, she softly replied, So when did you two meet? A long time ago. Oh, I see. Where's your family from? You're not from Jiangqing, are you? Jiang He paused, thinking, I'm familiar with this question. She confidently replied, right. I'm from out of town, not from Jiangqing. Oh, I see. Where are you from then? The boon is. That day, Su Qing took Jiang He to his parents' house for dinner. Su Qing was called to the study by her father for questioning. What do you think you're doing? What's the meaning of you two living together? Su Qing was speechless. Dad, don't talk nonsense. She's just staying over. We just eat together and things like that. Her father didn't believe her. Do you think I'm stupid? You young people have your own ideas. But what if something happens to Fawn? Have you thought about the future? Su Qing really wanted to say that she's just his fake girlfriend. What the heck could happen? But he could only change the subject. Don't worry, just waive my rent. We'll talk about everything else later. Old Su still wouldn't let it go. We'll talk about the rent later. I have to talk to you about living together first. Su Qing interrupted Lao Duo. Dad, in this regard, I definitely know more than you do. Lao Su was furious. Knowing more makes you so great. Su Qing was kicked out. The door slammed shut. Su Qing could only walk towards the living room. When he saw his mom chatting with Jiang He realized he was in trouble. The more his mom asked, the more likely Jiang He was to slip up. He quickly told his mom, it's getting late, we should go back now. A moment later, after putting on their coats and hats, they said goodbye to his mom, and took a bag of potatoes with them. After they left, Lao Su finally emerged from his study. He asked his wife, how was that girl? She seemed nice. What does she do? I don't know. Lao Su was confused. Didn't you ask her? I did. She said she's doing her own thing. Lao Su suddenly sensed something was off. What's her own thing? Just her own things. His wife spoke frankly. I didn't think anything was wrong. Old Su had to change the question. Where is she from? Some backwater mountain village near Zhicheng. What? Old Su whipped his head around. What mountain village? Near Zhicheng. Good heavens. After a barrage of questions, his assessment of his son's girlfriend revealed everything except what he wanted to know. Old Su angrily ripped open the curtains. So I got stuck with the dinner bill, and then they swindled me out of the rent. They ran off without telling me anything. Looking at this pair of master swindlers, these jerks didn't even buy any fruit. What the hell is the difference between that and me coming back empty-handed? Soon, the two returned to the entrance of the residential complex. Su Qing asked Jiang He, did you eat your fill just now? Should I cook some noodles when we get home? No, I'm full. I'm eating less and less these days. Su Qing stopped and smiled. That's normal. For one, you're not moving around much now, so you're burning fewer calories, and your appetite naturally decreases. Secondly, there are many dishes here, and the rice and dishes are eaten together. You get full easily. I think you should eat less. Otherwise, you'll become a little chubby girl, and your qingdong will be ruined. Jiang He was frightened, and repeatedly said, I'll eat less in the future. Su Qing, this guy, started pretending to be a good person again. There's no need. You don't have to starve yourself on purpose. Anyway, you usually consume a lot of energy practicing martial arts. As long as I don't eat too much, it shouldn't be a big problem. I'll buy a scale later. Then you can keep an eye on it and adjust accordingly. What kind of scale? The kind they use to weigh pigs. A few people lift you up and hang you from a big scale. Jiang He believed him and opened her mouth in shock. Seeing her expression, Su Qing finally told her the truth. Just kidding. You'll know when I buy it. After all, this little girl learns too fast. I have to tease her now, or I'm afraid I won't have a chance later. Jiang He was about to say something to him, but Su Qing quickly changed the subject. Oh, the taxi's here. We should go. Back at home, Jiang He stared at the items in her game inventory, feeling melancholic. At this rate, when would she ever be able to pay off her debts and support herself? She asked Su Qing, young hero, are there any other ways to make money? Su Qing was taken aback. Actually, there are many ways to make money online. I can't even count them all, but to say which ones are suitable for Jiang He, I can't really think of any right now. So Su Qing told Jiang He, you should just keep playing games. We'll talk about making money later. When you find something you're truly interested in, then you can decide. It won't be too late. After all, life is only a few short decades. Having fun is the most important thing. You're here to enjoy yourself. Hearing this, Jiang He seemed a little melancholic. But I don't have anything. After a pause, she asked, what about Donghua? Is it here to enjoy itself too? Hearing this, Su Qing looked at Donghua, who was sprawled out. I'm not a cat, so I don't know how it feels. But I envy you. You don't have all those social conventions and restrictions. Jiang He mumbled uncomprehendingly, what? Forget it. You wouldn't understand. For people who only say half of what they mean, if this were the Tang dynasty, Jiang He would definitely punch Su Qing into the ground. She yelled at Su Qing angrily, if you don't tell me, how am I supposed to understand? Su Qing didn't bother to explain further. You'll figure it out eventually. I'm going to take a shower. Su Qing walked to the bathroom door and suddenly stopped. Oh right. Actually, I hate two types of people. The first type are those who only tell half the story. Su Qing then fell silent. Jiang He couldn't help but ask, what about the second one? Her response was the sound of the bathroom door slamming shut. Jiang He nearly lost it. She really wanted to punch him. This is a search history of a girl, not from the Tang dynasty. She felt guilty and didn't want to be his girlfriend. Visit more historical records. She wanted to sneak away. Su Qing was explaining to Jiang He how to make more money through the game. There are generally two types of merchants in the game. One is a monopoly, relying on large amounts of capital to control all resources in their own hands. The other is to use information asymmetry. I know something you don't know. That's where the information asymmetry lies. The dignitaries of your time often played this trick. For example, when there were signs of a disaster, they would use this information gap to hoard grain in advance, and then sell it at a high price. They made those poor families sell their houses, their land, and even their daughters. This way, they monopolized resources and solidified their class. I could even use this information gap. You're going to be my bed warmer, hee hee. Xiao Jianghe was frightened. She immediately put on a fierce expression and shouted, I won't be your bed warmer. Damn you. You pervert. Su Qing quickly waved his hand, I'm just kidding, But speaking of which, Su Qing knew. Jiang He is like a blank sheet of paper right now. She practically has to relearn everything from 1,000 years later. Just explaining things bit by bit like this. I'll probably still be explaining things by the time we have kids. Thinking of this, Su Qing suddenly had an idea. He abruptly stood up and said, culture. Search for culture online. The two of them went to the computer. Jiang He searched using the tablet. Humanities, which emphasizes human culture. This is the part you're missing. Literature, painting, music, drama, film, and so on. These are all concentrated expressions of humanities. I'll find some suitable novels and movies for you. From now on, make time to watch them with me every day. Jiang He stared at Su Qing. So after I learn all that, there won't be an information gap between us anymore. Yeah, what else? I tell you jokes and you don't get them. Don't play anymore today. Time for a shower and bed, Su Qing said to himself. But Jiang He seemed to be thinking about something. She suddenly looked up and asked, aren't you trying to trick me into being your girlfriend? By taking advantage of information asymmetry, Su Qing was completely caught off guard by her words. He panicked. How did you? Why would you think that? Jiang He stared directly at him. Aren't you? I feel like you have a guilty conscience. Su Qing put her hands on her hips and argued back. You're slandering me. You're ruining my reputation. Go take a shower. Hearing this, Jiang He obediently got up to shower. Su Qing finally breathed a sigh of relief. Not long after, the sound of rushing water came from the bathroom. Su Qing tiptoed to the computer. This girl is definitely hiding something. After opening Jiang He's search history, Su Qing was dumbfounded. This guy really has a guilty conscience. A man and a woman spending all day together. Isn't it normal to develop feelings? What's with trying to sneak away? And what could she possibly find searching for Su Qing? I didn't expect this girl to be so naive, acting all innocent. So it was all an act. Su Qing was speechless. It's a shame she didn't get an Oscar. Not long after, Jiang He came out of the shower, but was slightly taken aback by Su Qing's expression. What's with that expression? Su Qing pretended indifference. Nothing, no expression. At night, Jiang He returned to her room and sat on the bed, her mind racing with restless thoughts. She had been certain that Su Qing wanted to trick her into being his girlfriend. Therefore, he should have wanted her to be as naive as possible. But why did he just help her bridge the knowledge gap? Could it be that she had overthought everything before? Was Su Qing genuinely just helping her? The next morning, Su Qing was woken up by his ringing phone. He fumbled to answer the call, and was immediately met with Qin Hao's roaring voice. What the hell did you say to my dad? Su Qing hadn't even opened his eyes yet. I said the name Overlord was a good one. Keep pretending. What's this about the blind date? Su Qing laughed his ass off. What blind date? Probably saw I brought my girlfriend home, so Uncle Qin got anxious. Bah! It must have been you, kid. Su Qing wouldn't listen to his nonsense. He just hung up. My girlfriend made me a loving breakfast, gotta go. A moment later, Su Qing hummed a tune as he walked out of the room. I gave that jerk Hao Zi a good scolding this morning. I feel so much better now. Jiang He was practicing his sword. You're up early today, Su Qing said with a serious face, to strengthen my kidneys. To strengthen my body. This kind of thing requires constant practice. So then, Jiang He transformed into a strict teacher, and Su Qing was trained so hard he cried out in pain, unable to resist asking Jiang He, do you have any kind of quick training method for this kung fu? Like those evil cult practices where you have to castrate yourself to cultivate divine powers, or some righteous cultivation methods like dual cultivation. Jiang He was stunned. What? You want to castrate yourself? Su Qing turned his head. No, I want to dual cultivate. Jiang He was now a mixture of shock, anger, shame, and annoyance. She was frightened by Su Qing's words. Turning her head away shyly, she said, there's no such cultivation technique. But her eyes clearly said, there is such a cultivation technique. Seeing her little scheme exposed, Jiang He flew into a rage. Even if I did, I wouldn't. This person, he's truly detestable. After Su Qing finished his daily practice, he suddenly ran to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror. He flexed his biceps. But unfortunately, there was no visible change. Su Qing felt a little frustrated. He had encountered a female knight from the Tang dynasty, so shouldn't he be the destined protagonist in this situation? First, he met the knight by chance, and after sleeping, he learned supreme divine skills, and then robbed the rich and helped the poor with her, showing off and slapping faces everywhere. And by the way, destroy a couple of evil organizations. Finally, the two of us will understand each other and live in seclusion in the mountains. Thinking of this, Su Qing suddenly remembered, I still have my dad and mom. Living in seclusion is out of the question. I'd better just honestly be an ordinary person. During the day, the two of them had nothing to do. Su Qing sat on the sofa, spacing out. Dong Gua kept pawing at Jiang He's book. Su Qing glanced at Jiang He beside her. Finally, she couldn't help but remind her. Lying down like that can hurt your eyesight. It's better to sit up straight. Jiang He was reading Night Journey. Hearing Su Qing speak, I put down my book. Then I sat up abruptly. Nearsightedness. What is that? It's when your eyes can't see things clearly. You need to wear glasses. I remember I have a pair of non-prescription glasses. Wait a minute, I'll look for them. A moment later, Su Qing brought a pair of non-prescription glasses specifically for looking cool. Here, put them on and try them out. Seeing the confused look on Jiang He's face, Su Qing pointed to his eyes. Remember my dad? The thing he wears here is called glasses. As he spoke, Su Qing picked up his phone. And while Jiang He was just putting them on, he snapped a picture of her. Then he showed her the photo. Look, they look quite good on you. After he finished speaking, Su Qing, who had been looking at the photo, suddenly shifted his gaze to Jiang He. Seeing her wearing glasses and looking innocent, Su Qing's heart fluttered. He wanted to hug this cute chivalrous woman again. He paused for a moment before saying, I thought of my father again. Jiang He didn't understand what Su Qing meant. She tilted her head and asked, Your father? What about him? Su Qing continued to drop hints frantically. You know. Has your stepmother ever made you feel embraced? Jiang He didn't think much of it. We cuddle together often. In winter, she holds me tightly. It's very warm and comfortable. Su Qing could only respond with an, oh. Just then, his phone suddenly rang. Su Qing saw that it was unexpectedly that rich jerk Wang Zijuan calling. At this moment, Wang Zijuan was in his car. He asked Su Qing, Are you home? Yeah, what's up? It turned out to be about Jiang He's part-time job from last time. Wang Zijuan had looked into it and said, It can be done. There are some documents that need Jiang He's signature. He happened to be out today, so I planned to go directly to Su Qing's house. Not long after, someone knocked on Su Qing's door. Su Qing was about to get up to open the door, but Jiang He beat her to it, and looked through the peephole. I don't know why, but this girl always likes to peek through the peephole. But at this moment, Jiang He was thinking that the invention of this peephole was truly wonderful. If I encounter a bad guy, I can just take my sword and stab through the door. Looking through the peephole, Jiang He also recognized the person who came. It was Wang Zijuan, the rich kid. As soon as she opened the door, Wang Zijuan complained about the freezing weather. But when he saw that it was a girl who opened the door, Wang Zijuan immediately turned and left. He thought he had gone to the wrong door. Su Qing quickly pulled him back. Didn't you meet my girlfriend last time? You forgot already. I didn't realize kidney deficiency could also affect memory. After entering, Wang Zijuan comfortably leaned back on the sofa. My frozen hands and feet are finally coming back to life. Then, he said meaningfully, No wonder I haven't seen you around lately. So you've been hiding a beauty here. Su Qingsheng was afraid Jiang He would be angry, so he quickly urged him to get to the point. Is this reliable? What if we get caught and exposed? It'll be worse than doing nothing. Don't worry, I've absolutely got you covered. Don't you just want a work history? This promotional girl job is perfect. You just need to sign off on how much alcohol you sold at the end of your shift. The commission is paid weekly after totaling up the sales. It's the safest part-time job, high turnover, low profile position, nobody knows you. If anyone really wants to investigate using this record, and all accounts can be checked. Su Qing smiled with satisfaction. This is exactly what I want. The more inconspicuous, the better. Better safe than sorry. Maybe I'll use it later. Jiang He, Su Qing called out, Come here, sign this. That day, Wang Zijuan came to Su Qing's house with some documents. Su Qing gave the labor contract to Jiang He and asked her to sign it. Jiang He's eyes widened. What is this? Su Qing could only explain, Don't worry, I'm not selling you. These materials can prove you worked here 2 years ago. But this little girl, what if she hasn't learned how to write her own name? Su Qing wrote one first, then said to Jiang He, Look, this is your name. Copy it here. That's your signature. Hearing this, Wang Zijuan was stunned. Wait, she can't even write her own name. Su Qing smiled and started making things up again. Well, it's a long story. She's been wandering alone for over 10 years. Then, by chance, I picked her up. You have no idea. Before, all she did was sniffle and giggle foolishly. She was so pathetic. Jiang He listened to his nonsense. Her grip on her pen almost breaking. It was a pity there were outsiders present, or she would have hit him. It was truly infuriating. The oblivious Su Qing then said to Wang Zijuan with a hint of bragging, Stay for dinner. You've come all this way in such cold weather. It was hard on you. Wang Zijuan agreed. So Su Qing asked Jiang He to cook an extra dish today. Jiang He agreed and skillfully tied her hair up. Then she went to the kitchen and put on an apron. Wang Zijuan was stunned. Deliver. I thought when you said stay for dinner, we just grabbed something nearby. Wang Zijuan was envious. So nice. I suddenly want a girlfriend who can cook too. Su Qing was speechless. Then get one. Just take care of yourself. While waiting for dinner, Wang Zijuan walked over to the computer boredly. Speaking of which, I want to build a new computer recently. Could you help me make a list when you have time? Can you assemble it? How about I have a friend assemble it and deliver it to you? You'll just have to pay when it arrives. Wang Zijuan readily agreed, but suddenly noticed the computer was entirely in traditional Chinese characters. You've been a bit strange lately, Qing Zi, but you know, reality is pretty amazing. You can't afford this stuff, yet you seem to know everything about it. Su Qing casually popped an orange into his mouth. Of course, us poor folks spend time learning, while you rich folks buy our time with money. That's... Mid-sentence, Su Qing suddenly froze. Whoa, wait a minute. Wang Zijuan also froze, even dropping the orange he was holding. He looked at Su Qing with a bewildered expression and asked, "Did you take the wrong medicine today? Normally you would just tell me to get lost. Did I mistake you for someone else? Your Su family has a younger brother named Su Qian, right?" Su Qing flung his hand away. Go. You're the one who took the wrong medicine, but I was indeed careless. He's not Jiang He. Why do I have to explain it in such detail? He sighed faintly. It's just that so much has happened in the past 6 months. After all, I've been keeping a Tang Dynasty person at home. Who else could have this experience? Wang Zijuan was even more confused. You stay home all day unemployed. What could possibly happen? Dating one girlfriend makes you experienced. I've dated so many, and it's nothing. Su Qing asked Wang Zijuan in return. Have you seen my love from the star? Wang Zijuan was stunned. What? Do you also have an idiot professor? Or is your girlfriend an alien? Su Qing smiled slightly. No. I mean, with your intelligence level for watching this kind of drama, I can't explain it to you. Wang Zijuan was instantly speechless. A whole herd of alpacas galloped through his mind. Su Qing couldn't be bothered with him anymore. He stood up and walked towards the kitchen. I'll go see if my girlfriend needs any help. Su Qing reached the kitchen doorway. Jiang He was concentrating on washing the vegetables. From time to time, she brushed the hair away from her eyes. Su Qing put on a cheeky expression and suddenly said, "You look really beautiful like this." There was another sentence he didn't dare to say. You'd make a perfect wife. Jiang He was taken aback by his words. She quickly reacted and angrily scolded him in a panic. Why you? What are you saying? You scoundrel. Jiang He immediately grabbed a kitchen knife. Seeing Jiang He's angry expression, Su Qing turned and ran. I just came to take a look. You're busy. After Su Qing left, Jiang He chopped vegetables with more force, angrily muttering, jerk. He runs over here out of nowhere and tells me I look good. What does he want? Not long after, the three of them sat at the dining table. Wang Zijuan still looked somewhat surprised. This tastes surprisingly good. Su Qing smiled brilliantly, then eat more. Jiang He watched their interaction from the side, feeling like something was off. Isn't this like when a guest comes over, and the husband chats with them while the wife cooks? That day, Su Qing had Wang Zijuan stay for dinner. After Wang Zijuan finished eating and left, Jiang He returned to the dining table to clear the dishes. Su Qing suddenly remembered something behind her, so he took the bowls and plates from Jiang He's hands and said, "You must be tired from cooking. Take a break. Let me do the dishes. I also have something to tell you." Then, Su Qing started washing the dishes and explained, "From today on, you're no longer a Tang Dynasty person who appeared out of thin air. Let's start with your identity. In the backstory Su Qing created for you, Jiang He, you lost your parents at a young age, and had to wander around the mountain valleys of Zhejiang. When you were 16, a friend brought you to Jiangcheng, and you've been doing odd jobs here ever since. Then one day, you met a kind-hearted person named Su Qing. After they met, they quickly became good friends. As they spent time together, they unsurprisingly developed feelings for each other. And so, their innocent love began. They reveled in their love, and it blossomed into a great love. Love makes one blind, but also fills one with motivation. After they became boyfriend and girlfriend, Su Qing began trying to help Jiang He find her parents, but it yielded no results. Later, persuaded by Su Qing, Jiang He finally moved into Su Qing's home. The two began living together, and just like that, Su Qing and Jiang He's story came to a close. Su Qing felt this plot was very reasonable, because if Jiang He weren't his girlfriend, he wouldn't have gone to so much trouble to help her. That doesn't make sense. Because only love can make someone so blind. It makes someone so great, understand? Su Qing's sudden approach startled Jiang He. She replied somewhat dazedly, I understand, it's great love. As she spoke, Su Qing reached out her hand towards Jiang He. Then, as Jiang He looked on in astonishment, I brushed her hair, slowly and gently. After I finished, I slowly withdrew my hand. Knowing my actions were too intimate, I could only blush and change the subject. Once you're completely familiar with modern life here, we'll go to the officials and tell them we plan to get married. Then, we realized we had to resolve the issue of your identity. That's why we've delayed coming here until now. As long as I solidify this experience, I can subtly familiarize everyone around me with it.